Chapter 1533. Today, the young geniuses of the Outcloud Empire were here to humiliate Ji Tianxing. Lan Yiqing had led the young geniuses to stop Ji Tianxing from going to the temple to worship. Instead, Ji Tianxing was angered to the point of vomiting blood. Now that Ji Tianxing had been kicked out of the temple, she would not let go of this chance to humiliate Ji Tianxing. The young geniuses stood in a row in front of Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing stopped. He looked at Lan Yiqing and the others with a straight face and said coldly, "Good dogs don't block the way. If you know what's good for you, piss off." As soon as he spoke, Lan Yiqing and the others were livid with rage. Their eyes were burning with rage. Lan Yiqing sneered and said with contempt, "Ji Tianxing, how dare you be so arrogant under these circumstances? You are courting death." Kuang Long also grinned and sneered, "Ha ha. You have no shame in betraying your own country. You want to curry favor with Lu Li of the Empire of Thousand Snow. You are willing to be his lackey. What is the result? He worships the immortal Lord and is favored by the immortal Lord. Now you are kicked out of the temple. You don't even have the right to worship the immortal Lord." Ji Tianxing's eyes grew cold. There was a glint of coldness in his eyes. He put on a meaningful sneer. He glanced over to Kuang Long, Lan Yiqing and the young geniuses of the Outcloud Empire and said in a low voice, "You think the immortal Lord gave the oracle to Lu Li and I was kicked out of the temple? So, you bunch of clowns can't wait to jump out and humiliate me?" The young geniuses let out disdainful smirks. "Of course. You're the one humiliating me, you traitor. Ha ha, at least you know your place. Ji Tianxing, you have been expelled from the Outcloud Empire. You don't deserve to be a citizen of our country. Traitor, kneel down and admit your sins." The geniuses of the Chu Yun Empire had the advantage in numbers, and Ji Tianxing had been chased out of the temple. Under such circumstances, the geniuses were naturally arrogant and wanted to take the opportunity to humiliate him, ruthlessly trampling on his dignity in front of the geniuses of the Six Nations. Ji Tianxing suddenly smiled. He was so angry that he laughed. His entire body erupted with soaring battle intent. His incomparably powerful aura was like an invisible mountain that pressed down on everyone. "You bunch of clowns dare to point fingers in front of me? I've already warned you before. Since you insist on seeking death, I'll grant you your wish." He roared with a domineering aura, and his entire body lit up with a golden light that soared into the sky. His body also suddenly grew to a height of more than 10 meters, turning into a majestic giant. "All of you, get down." Amidst his furious roar, he suddenly waved his palms and fiercely slapped at the three young geniuses in front of him. Heaven-seizing palm. The three of them were sneering and mocking him when suddenly, two giant golden palms descended from the sky with a force that could destroy heaven and earth. The three of them instantly froze, and their eyes widened in horror. They had never imagined that Ji Tianxing would actually be so arrogant, attacking at the slightest disagreement. The power of the giant golden palms was too terrifying, and the speed of the attack was also extremely fast. Before they could react, they were hit by the giant golden palms. Bam, bam. A deafening muffled sound suddenly exploded in the square. Two giant pits were formed on the hard and sturdy stone ground. The three young geniuses of the Chu Yun Empire were lying in the ruins, covered in blood, and had already fainted. The sudden upheaval left everyone in the square dumbfounded. The geniuses of the various nations had an incredulous expression as they looked at Ji Tianxing with astonishment and exclaimed, "Oh my God! Is this guy crazy? He wants to become enemies with more than 10 geniuses of the Chu Yun Empire? He actually dares to injure other geniuses outside the temple? He's really lawless. This guy is finished. No one dares to cause trouble on Mount God Bestowment. He's dead meat. Heh. The people of the Chu Yun Empire are actually fighting among themselves outside the temple. What a joke!" The young geniuses of the various nations quickly retreated to the edge of the square and watched the battle calmly, as if they were waiting for a good show. Song Zhanyu, who was in the crowd, stared deeply at Ji Tianxing and sneered. "Humph, this guy is really arrogant. He actually dares to fight more than 10 young geniuses in front of everyone. That's good. I can see how strong he is. Perhaps he will even use the legendary Sword of Burial of Heaven. At the same time, Lan Yiqing, Kuang Long, and the others, who were inexplicably shocked, finally came to their senses. They looked at the deep pit in front of them and their 3 companions at the bottom of the pit. They were instantly furious and roared angrily. Jianxing, how dare you make a move outside the divine hall? You traitor! How dare you attack your own countrymen? You're heartless. Jianxing, don't blame us for bullying you because we outnumber you. Today, we're going to clean up the Chuyan Empire and teach you a lesson. Lan Yiqing, Kuang Long, and the others were shocked and angry at first. After they calmed down, they were overjoyed. Everyone saw that Jianxing had started the fight. If they joined forces to fight back and beat Jianxing half to death and destroy his cultivation, it would be reasonable. They would not be punished. This was the best chance for them to take revenge and destroy Jianxing. At this thought, Lan Yiqing, Kuang Long, and the others all used their secret skills and attacked Jianxing with all their might. Jianxing was not afraid. He sneered disdainfully, "A bunch of trash. I said I would beat you up. Do I have to pick a time?" As he said that, he swung his fists again and used his ultimate move to attack the 2 young geniuses not far away. Star-shattering fist. The 2 young geniuses were Kuang Long's fans. They had been following Kuang Long and were very arrogant. They had been cursing him. However, the 2 of them were only at the 4th level of the primordial spirit realm. Before they could defend themselves, the 2 balls of dazzling golden fist radiance had already struck the 2 of them. Bam, bam. With 2 dull thuds, the 2 young geniuses were sent flying. Blood spurted out of their orifices as they landed 1,000 feet away. The 2 young geniuses smashed into the edge of the square. After they landed, they fell unconscious and did not get up again. At this time, Lan Yiqing, Kuang Long, and the 6 young geniuses all used their powerful ultimate moves to attack Jianxing. Pillars of fire, ice blades, and sword radiance of various colors, as well as the radiance of spells that covered the sky, fell from the sky and enveloped Jianxing. The area within a radius of 3,000 meters was instantly transformed into a colorful and dazzling world. Jianxing's figure was about to be drowned by the various spells. At this critical moment, Jianxing was fearless even though he was facing 8 opponents alone. Golden light flashed behind him and a pair of golden wings appeared. Chapter 1534. Bam, 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 bam. At that moment, Lan Yiqing, Kuang Long, and the others all sneered, as if they had succeeded. Cold, sinister smiles hung on the corners of their lips. The geniuses from the various countries had mixed feelings. Some felt sorry for Bam. Others were gloating. Most of them were certain that Jianxing would not be able to withstand the combined attacks of the 8 geniuses. Even a genius at the 6th level of the primordial soul realm would be killed on the spot, let alone his 5th level of the primordial soul realm. Everyone was dumbfounded. They could not believe what they had seen. He saw that the square with a radius of 3,000 meters had become a fragmented ruin. Several huge deep pits had appeared, and the surroundings were covered with cracks like a spider web. Jianxing stood above the crater, unscathed. He stepped into the sky, his body tall and straight. A pair of large golden wings bloomed behind his back, radiating a holy light under the sunlight. He was as majestic as a god. He looked down at Kuang Long and the rest coldly. He was exuding a domineering aura. Everyone was stunned for a long time. When they came to their senses, they exclaimed. Lan Yiqing, Kuang Long, and the rest were also shocked. Their hearts were beating wildly. How is this possible? He's unscathed? That damned bastard. In just 2 short months, he's become even stronger than before. We've broken ties with him. No matter what, we have to cripple him today. Otherwise, there will be no end to our troubles. The 8 geniuses communicated secretly. They exchanged looks and reached a consensus. Let's attack together. Let's end this quickly. Along with a few low shouts, the 8 geniuses attacked Jianxing with all their might. A cold light flashed in Jianxing's eyes. He waved his palms without hesitation. He unleashed all his strength and used his ultimate move. heaven-capturing palm, star-shattering fist. His left hand struck out a giant golden palm, while his right hand struck out a mountain-like golden fist radiance, blasting towards the young geniuses. Pung ping pung! Another series of muffled sounds burst out. The four young geniuses were sent flying by the giant golden palm and fist radiance. They spat out mouthfuls of blood as they were sent flying and smashed into the square. These four people were the same as the previous five. They could not withstand a single blow from him and were severely injured on the spot. Such a powerful and invincible strength shocked all the geniuses of the various countries, causing them to reveal a look of deep shock. Following that, Ji Tianxing used the divine concealment step, maintaining his stealth state as he quietly rushed to the side of the two young geniuses. Bang bang! With a punch and a palm, he sent the two young geniuses flying and landed in a corner of the square. Their chests and abdomens caved in, and blood spurted out from their noses and mouths. After falling to the ground, they struggled a few times, but failed to get up. At this point, he had already defeated 11 young geniuses. Only Lan Yiqing and Kuang Long were left. They were still using their ultimate techniques to fight against him. Only the two of you are left. Even though you have lost to me, I don't mind trampling on you one more time. Ji Tianxing shouted in a dignified tone, emitting a powerful aura. With that said, he was about to use his secret skill to crush Lan Yiqing and Kuang Long. But at this moment, an angry roar like a great bell suddenly exploded in the air above the square. Stop! Everyone turned around. They saw more than a dozen powerful warriors walking out from the gate of the temple. The leader was the chief guardian. He flew over to the square with a gloomy expression. The 6 emissaries followed him and hurried to the square as well. At the end of the group was Lu Li, Jiang Ningxue, and several geniuses of the Empire of Thousand Snow. Clearly, the fight just now was so loud that the chief guardian and the emissaries were alerted. The square quieted down. Nobody said a word. They looked at Ji Tianxing and the chief guardian. Everyone secretly thought that Ji Tianxing was finished this time. The chief guardian would never let him go. Sure enough, the chief guardian looked at Ji Tianxing with a dignified expression and shouted in a deep voice, Ji Tianxing, you guys actually flouted the laws of the vast heaven pagoda and fought outside the temple. How should you be punished? Everyone originally thought that the chief guardian would definitely pin the crime of offending the majesty of the divine master on Ji Tianxing. But the chief guardian did not mention the divine master. He only said that he flouted the laws of the vast heaven pagoda. This made the geniuses of various countries somewhat puzzled. They faintly felt that something was not quite right. Ji Tianxing glanced at the chief guardian expressionlessly and said in a deep voice, Chief Guardian, I suggest you investigate the facts clearly before convicting. The chief guardian froze. Thinking of all the things that happened before, he was somewhat fearful. He frowned and said in a deep voice, Okay, I enforce the law impartially. I never wronged anyone, but I won't be partial to anyone either. Now, you tell me what in the world is going on here. Ji Tianxing shot a glance at Lan Yiqing and Kuang Long. He said in an indifferent tone, a bunch of mad dogs that bite people indiscriminately. They blocked my path and even wanted to bully me by relying on numbers. Since that's the case, I can only teach them how to behave. The moment these words came out, the geniuses of various countries sucked in a cold breath one after another, revealing looks of shock and astonishment on their faces. My heavens, this guy is simply crazy to the point of defying the laws. Facing the chief guardian's questioning, he still didn't hurry to plead guilty or explain. He's actually so arrogant. Isn't this courting death? Too arrogant. This brat offended the chief guardian once in the first place. Now he has such a vile attitude. He's completely hopeless. Wait and see. He's arrogant for a while now. There'll be time for him to cry right away. Lan Yiqing and Kuang Long were scolded in public by Ji Tianxing. They were so ashamed that they trembled in anger. Kuang Long stepped forward bravely and bowed to the chief guardian. He explained, Chief Guardian, a dozen of our disciples couldn't stand Ji Tianxing's ugly face and his shameless act of betraying our country. In order to protect the dignity of our country, we reprimanded him a little, hoping that he would repent and turn over a new leaf. But we didn't expect him to be so arrogant and audacious. He actually dared to fight outside the divine hall and seriously injured 11 of our countrymen until they fainted. Before Wang Lin could finish his words, the chief guardian and the 6 divine messengers' faces changed. Their eyes were filled with deep shock. The chief guardian looked at Ji Tianxing with burning eyes and asked in disbelief, "Ji Tianxing, did you really start the fight first?" "That's right." Ji Tianxing did not bother to explain or lie. He answered expressionlessly. The glint in the chief guardian's eyes intensified. He asked in disbelief, "You fought a dozen of them alone?" "That's right." Ji Tianxing nodded with an indifferent expression. The chief guardian narrowed his eyes immediately. Perilous waves surged in his heart. This brat fought a dozen of them alone and came out unscathed. But he knocked 11 geniuses unconscious? Why didn't this seat notice that he had such tyrannical strength previously? No wonder this brat has always been arrogant and haughty. No wonder he could cause the Divine Master to send down an oracle. With his strength at the 5th level Essence Spirit realm, he can reach such terrifying combat strength. He is indeed a rare genius. The few divine messengers exchanged glances and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Previously, they were still trying to figure out the meaning of the oracle. Now, they could finally confirm that the oracle was for Ji Tianxing. Wang Lin saw that the chief guardian and divine messengers were silent. He said somewhat anxiously, "Chief guardian," Ji Tianxing turned a deaf ear to the vast heaven pagoda's laws and openly fought outside the divine hall. Chapter 1535. Before Wang Lin could finish his words, the chief guardian bellowed, "Shut up! I have been in charge of the Haoqian pagoda for hundreds of years. Do I need you to teach me?" "I dare not." Wang Lin was pale with fright. He lowered his head and saluted at once. The chief guardian secretly communicated with the several messengers and then announced, "The mountain of investiture is a holy land of martial arts. It does not prohibit disciples from learning from each other. This is a personal grudge between the disciples of the Outcloud Empire and Ji Tianxing. The Haoqian Pagoda will not interfere. However, you should not fight in the plaza in public. You will damage the dignity of the Holy Land. If there are any conflicts or disputes between disciples, please go to the arena to resolve them. All the disciples that have participated in the fight will be punished by going to the Cliff of Reflection for 10 days as a punishment." When the Great Protector announced the punishment, everyone was stunned. Lan Yiqing, Wang Lin, and the others were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. "No way! This is the punishment?" The chief guardian has always enforced the law with an iron face. How can he be so gentle? These people have made such a big mess and they are only punished with 10 days of reflection? When did the chief guardian become so gentle? This is not right. Ji Tianxing started the fight. How can he be punished the same as the others? This is not a punishment. It is more like the chief guardian is siding with Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing has offended the chief guardian before. How can he be siding with Ji Tianxing? The young geniuses from all over the world were in an uproar. They were discussing with shock and confusion. Everyone could tell that the chief guardian not only did not punish Ji Tianxing according to the rules, but also downplayed the matter and punished him lightly. This was not normal. The geniuses from different countries were confused and could not understand. Only the chief guardian, Ji Tianxing, the 6 messengers, and Lu Li understood the real reason. Standing at the edge of the plaza, Lu Li stared at Ji Tianxing with a gloomy look. Deep down in his eyes was surging hatred and naked jealousy. Lan Yiqing, Wang Lin, and the others came back to their senses and hurriedly complained to the Great Guardian. "Great Guardian, it was clearly Ji Tianxing who caused trouble first. Great Guardian, please deal with this matter impartially and punish Ji Tianxing severely. Only then can we convince the masses." Ji Tianxing is vicious and merciless. He has injured 11 disciples. He must be severely punished. Chief Protector, Ji Tianxing offended the Divine Master during the worship ceremony before. Today, he once again blasphemed the Divine Master's dignity. He must be expelled from the Clear Sky Pagoda. Seeing that the 8 young geniuses had all opened their mouths to protest, The great guardian's face turned cold as he shouted in a dignified tone, "Shut up! I'm merciful, that's why I'm giving you a lighter punishment. If you continue to pester me without reason, I will punish you severely. As for offending the Divine Master's dignity, is that something you have the right to say? Open your eyes wide and take a good look at what the oracle on the stone tablet says." Hearing this, all the geniuses were stunned. Everyone turned their heads in unison and looked at the golden words on the stone tablet. Anyone who wasn't an idiot could understand what the great guardian meant. They could all guess that there was something more to the oracle. As expected, when they took a closer look at the oracle, their expressions all changed. Among the crowd, Perfect Een was even more shocked. He exclaimed in disbelief. When he first entered the Mount of Investiture, he was struck by lightning. This is Jietianxing? He pointed out the answer in one sentence. Everyone was stunned. They were almost scared out of their wits. Lan Yiqing and Kuang Long, in particular, were stupefied. They stared at the oracle in a daze. They were petrified. "No way! This is impossible! I don't believe this is true. Jietianxing, that bastard, how could he get the oracle? Isn't it Lu Li who got the oracle? How come it's Jietianxing now? Wasn't Jietianxing kicked out of the temple in advance? How can he get the oracle to come? Crazy! We must be out of our minds." The nearly 100 geniuses from the 6 states were so shocked that they could not speak coherently. They did not know what to do. At this moment, the great guardian announced in a loud voice, "Jietianxing paid his respects to the immortal master today. He is favored by the immortal master and the oracle is here. In the past 200 years, this is the first time the immortal master has sent down an oracle. This is not only an honor for Jietianxing, but also for the entire Haotian Pagoda. It is worth celebrating. Because of this, I have shown you mercy and given you a lighter punishment." Hearing the great protector's words, everyone came to a sudden realization. No wonder the great guardian suddenly changed his attitude and sided with Jietianxing. A person that could be favored by the immortal master and get the oracle to come should be protected and valued. But no one could figure it out. Didn't Jietianxing offend the immortal master's dignity? How could he be favored by the immortal master? Of the dozens of young geniuses here, anyone could get the oracle except for Jietianxing. But the truth was right in front of them. The great guardian and the 6 messengers all thought so. Lu Li, who was in the corner of the plaza, also looked awful. He was filled with disappointment and shame. All signs pointed to the fact that the oracle was given to Jietianxing by the immortal master. The plaza was in a hubbub of voices. Everyone was discussing excitedly. They still could not accept this reality. The great guardian frowned. He waved his sleeve and ordered, "Let's go. This is the end of today's matter." Lan Yiqing and Kuang Long clenched their fists in anger and glared at Jietianxing. No matter how unwilling they were, they dared not to disobey the great guardian's order. They could only suppress their anger and humiliation, turned around and left. But at this moment, a cold voice sounded in the plaza. "Wait, did I say you could leave?" The sudden cold shout shocked everyone, causing the entire square to quieten down. Everyone turned to Jietianxing in surprise and confusion. Lan Yiqing and Kuang Long also suppressed their anger. They stared at him with hatred and said in a deep voice, "Jietianxing, what do you want?" "The great guardian has announced the punishment. What else do you want?" Jietianxing looked down at the two and said with a straight face, "I will abide by the punishment announced by the great guardian. But we have not settled our personal grudge yet. Let's settle this once and for all in front of everyone." Lan Yiqing and Kuang Long's expressions changed. They were filled with killing intent. "Jietianxing, don't push us too far." "Push us too far?" Jietianxing curled his lips and said with contempt, "Just now, when you stopped me in such a threatening manner and humiliated me in turns, did you ever think of pushing me too far? I didn't want to pay attention to you clowns. But you kept pestering me. How can I let you go? I'm going to make you swallow all the filthy words you've used to insult me." Chapter 1536. An incomparably domineering voice spread throughout the entire plaza, shocking everyone's hearts. The various countries' geniuses all stared at Jietianxing, revealing thick shock. Their heartbeats and blood flow accelerated. This guy. Really daring to say it. This is the true lawlessness. Either kneel down yourselves, or I'll beat you all to kneel. Too domineering. This is the unyielding character and domineering aura that a peerless genius should have. Yeah, even the divine master favored him and gave him an oracle. How can such a peerless genius be humiliated? Don't you guys forget, Ji Tianxing is the Outcloud Empire's #1 genius to begin with. He defeated those two people long ago. Many geniuses discussed animatedly, staring fixedly at Lan Yiqing and Quang Long, wanting to see how they would wrap things up. Lan Yiqing and Quang Long nearly exploded in anger. Their faces alternated between green and white, and their hands and feet were trembling. The two were also martial Dao geniuses with extraordinary backgrounds. They had always been proud and arrogant. They had never suffered such humiliation in their lives. Quang Long was in a violent rage. His eyes flickered with scarlet killing intent as he stared fixedly at Ji Tianxing. His voice was low and hoarse as he shouted, "Ji Tianxing! You bastard, even if I, Quang Long, die in battle, I absolutely won't submit to you. So what if you obtain the oracle? In my eyes, you'll always be a petty person who fawns on the powerful." In contrast, Lan Yiqing was still considered calm, restraining her anger and killing intent. She raised her head to look at the Chief Protector and said in a deep voice, "Chief Protector, you saw it. Ji Tianxing ignored your decision and was overbearing." The Chief Protector furrowed his brows and said expressionlessly, "This seat already said that the vast heaven pagoda won't interfere in the personal grudges between disciples. However, this seat and the 6 divine envoys are present. We can be the witnesses and allow you guys to duel. But no lives can be lost." 2 simple sentences expressed the vast heaven pagoda's attitude. Lan Yiqing was in complete despair. Counting on the Chief Protector to resolve the situation clearly could not be counted on. After all, a genius who obtained the oracle would receive the Divine Master's favor and would definitely become a peerless powerhouse in the future. Compared to Ji Tianxing, she and Quang Long appeared insignificant. It was already extremely benevolent of the Great Guardian to protect their lives. The hope in Lan Yiqing's eyes faded bit by bit, eventually turning into endless coldness and killing intent. She didn't regret her previous actions. She only regretted that she didn't use the Lan family's power to kill Ji Tianxing back in the Chuyan Empire. Quang Long took the lead and flew into the air, standing 1,000 feet away from Ji Tianxing, staring at him with a murderous look on his face. There was a bronze chain wrapped around his body, and his entire body was emitting a dark red light, releasing a powerful aura. "Ji Tianxing, last time, I was careless and lost to you. Today." He glared at Ji Tianxing and growled coldly. But Ji Tianxing ignored him. He pointed a finger at Lan Yiqing and said indifferently, "Come at me together. I don't want to waste time." As soon as he said this, everyone was shocked. How arrogant and domineering. Quang Long was completely ignored. This unparalleled humiliation almost made him vomit blood. Lan Yiqing was also angered by Ji Tianxing's disdainful attitude. "You damned bastard! You're too arrogant. Today, I'll avenge myself." As she spoke, a blue light flashed in her palm, and a crystal-clear blue sword appeared. It was the extreme ice sword. "Stars in the sky." She growled coldly. Her hands formed a mysterious seal, and she controlled the extreme ice sword to shoot out 360 rays of icy blue sword radiance towards Ji Tianxing. The sword radiance covered the sky, as dazzling as the stars in the sky. The terrifying sword radiance exuded an extremely cold aura, freezing everything within a radius of 20,000 feet. In an instant, Ji Tianxing's body was surrounded by more than 300 rays of sword radiance. He didn't take out any weapon, nor did he use his primordial spirit dharma power. He only used his fist to shoot out 2 rays of dark golden fist radiance. Star-shattering fist. He used all of his power, and the fist radiance was as powerful as a mountain. Kaboom! The icy blue sword radiance that covered the sky was smashed into countless ice shards by the fists. At this moment, Quang Long had arrived. He waved the ancient bronze chain and slashed out 19 blood-red giant swords, slashing towards Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing waved his hands again and slapped at the sword radiance. Heaven's seizing palm. The 2 giant golden palms slammed into the blood-red sword, causing 2 loud bangs to ring out. The dozen blood-red giant swords were all shattered. Lan Yiqing and Kuang Long's full-powered attacks were easily neutralized by Ji Tianxing. Both of them were shocked, and their eyes were filled with worry. The geniuses and oracles of God from various countries all retreated to the edge of the square, watching the battle calmly. At this moment, Ji Tianxing launched his counterattack. He suddenly used the stealth step and disappeared into the sky. The next moment, he appeared beside Kuang Long and punched him in the face. Crack! Kuang Long didn't expect this, and he couldn't dodge at all. The left side of his face caved in on the spot. His bones were shattered, and his flesh was badly mangled. Under the intense pain, he waved his bronze chain crazily and released 2 blood-red giant dragons to attack Ji Tianxing. However, Ji Tianxing's figure instantly disappeared, dodging the blood dragon's attack. The 2 blood-red dragons flew across the square and were about to hit the temple. At this critical moment, the great guardian waved his right hand and grabbed the 2 blood-red giant dragons, crushing them. The 2 destructive giant dragons were as weak as earthworms in front of him. At this moment, Ji Tianxing dodged the attacks of Kuang Long and Lan Yiqing and appeared on Kuang Long's right side like a ghost. Bang! He punched the right side of Kuang Long's face again. The right side of Kuang Long's face was smashed, and blood and broken bones spurted out. He was completely unrecognizable. Kuang Long had been the one who yelled the loudest, calling Ji Tianxing a traitor, a dog, and shameless. But now, Ji Tianxing had purposely smashed his entire face as punishment for his foul mouth. Kuang Long flew into a rage after suffering such heavy injuries. He immediately summoned his primordial spirit and used his ultimate skill to attack Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing, on the other hand, turned invisible and dodged the attack. He appeared and disappeared like a ghost and charged towards Lan Yiqing. Before Lan Yiqing could react, he swept his leg out and hit her knees. With a cracking sound, her legs were broken on the spot, and she let out a cry of pain. Then Ji Tianxing's figure flashed in and out of the square. Every time he appeared, he was beside Lan Yiqing or Kuang Long, and he used his fists and feet to injure them. Lan Yiqing and Kuang Long were beaten to a pulp. Countless bones and joints were broken, and their bodies were covered in blood. Even if they used their primordial spirit dharma forms and domain mystic arts, they couldn't do anything to Ji Tianxing. Back in the ranking battle, Ji Tianxing was only at the 4th level of the primordial spirit realm. Lan Yiqing could fight him for a while before losing. Chapter 1537. After a short while, the battle on the square stopped. Lan Yiqing and Kuang Long were both covered in wounds. Their tattered clothes were dyed red with blood, and they looked particularly miserable. Kuang Long was beyond recognition. His body was almost destroyed, but he still stood stubbornly on the ruins and did not fall. Lan Yiqing's knees and ankles were broken. He could not stand at all. He could only kneel on one knee with the extreme ice sword in his hands. Both of them were panting as they tried their best to suppress their injuries. They could no longer fight back. If they continued fighting, their bodies would definitely be destroyed. Ji Tianxing had beaten the 2 of them to such a state with absolute dominance, but he was not injured at all. He stood 100 steps away from the 2 of them. His face was cold as he stared at them indifferently. "Kneel. Apologize." A cold and majestic voice rang out above the square. It shook Lan Yiqing and Kuang Long's hearts. Both of them shuddered. They were furious. Lan Yiqing's eyes looked like they were about to spit fire. The hearts of the geniuses from all over the world were also in their throats. Everyone stared at Lan Yiqing and Kuang Long, wondering what they would do. Refuse to admit their mistakes and apologize? Then they would definitely end up in a miserable state. If they really did kneel and apologize, their reputation would be ruined. They would never be able to hold their heads high again. If they stayed on Mount Godseal, they would always be humiliated and ridiculed by others. Only the Great Guardian and the 6 divine envoys could resolve this situation. However, The Great Guardian had already stated that he would not interfere with their personal grudge with Ji Tianxing. Now, they could only solve this problem themselves. Ji Tianxing, don't even think about making me apologize. Kill me if you have the guts. Huang Long straightened his neck and raised his mangled head as he let out a furious roar. Lan Yiqing held the extreme ice sword in both hands. His face was extremely cold. He stared sharply at Ji Tianxing and said through gritted teeth, "You want me to apologize? Over my dead body?" Both of them were very determined. They would rather die than kneel and apologize. Ji Tianxing had long expected this. He sneered, "You're really stubborn." As soon as he finished speaking, a majestic primordial spirit pressure gushed out from his body and pressed down on Huang Long and Lan Yiqing. An invisible, enormous pressure descended from the sky like a towering mountain. Instantly, the two of them bent their backs and lowered their heads. Lan Yiqing was originally kneeling on one knee, holding the extreme ice sword with both hands. At this moment, she was forced to kneel on the ground. Her body was bent like a bow, and her head was almost touching the ground. Mad Dragon was originally standing, but at this moment he also bowed deeply, as if he was bowing to Ji Tianxing. Cracking noises could be heard from all the bones in his body, as if they were about to break. However, he was still stubbornly holding on, desperately resisting the suppressive power, unwilling to kneel no matter what. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing waved his hands and formed a mysterious seal, executing a secret technique. Dharma body of heaven and earth. As the seal was formed, the power of heaven and earth within 1,000 miles gathered on his body. Instantly, his aura skyrocketed, and his entire person became more sacred and majestic. He was as majestic as a mountain, and as majestic as a god. "Kneel!" He roared angrily, releasing an even more powerful suppressive power, which slammed toward Lan Yiqing and Mad Dragon. Mad Dragon was suddenly hit hard and could no longer hold on. His legs were instantly shattered, and he knelt on the ground with a plop. 2 deep depressions appeared on the ground that was filled with rubble as he knelt, almost swallowing his 2 legs. Under the terrifying suppressive power, his spine kept bending, and his head slowly reached toward the ground. Then, with a muffled bang, his entire head was smashed into the ground, creating a crater. Lan Yiqing's fate was the same. She knelt on the ground, half of her body buried in the rubble. Her head was also smashed into the ground, buried in dust. No matter how unyielding and angry they were forced to kneel and kowtow to Ji Tianxing to apologize. Their reputations were ruined just like that. Their pride and dignity as prodigies were also trampled to the point of being worthless. The prodigies of the 6 nations all felt a chill run down their spines as they looked at Ji Tianxing with fear and trepidation. This guy, what a ruthless method. He didn't kill Lan Yiqing and Mad Dragon. But this kind of humiliation was even more terrifying than killing them. From now on, they must never offend Ji Tianxing. Otherwise, they would suffer a fate worse than death. With that in mind, the young prodigies who had mocked Ji Tianxing before couldn't help but shrink their necks, and their hearts were filled with worry. At this moment, Ji Tianxing looked down at Lan Yiqing and Mad Dragon. He said in an indifferent voice, "There is no source of fortune or disaster. Those who humiliate others are bound to humiliate themselves. Don't provoke me in the future." As his voice fell, he retracted his invisible suppressive power. The sky within a radius of 10,000 feet was instantly unsealed. Lan Yiqing and Mad Dragon had regained their freedom. They hurriedly struggled out of the rubble and fled in a sorry state. The unparalleled humiliation and the discussions of the prodigies of the 6 nations made them want to die. They didn't dare to stay for even a moment longer. They didn't even dare to look at anyone. They just wanted to leave as soon as possible and escape from everyone's sight. Their leg bones were already shattered. With the support of their magic power, they staggered out of the plaza and returned to Chu Yun Palace in a daze. The prodigies of the various nations looked at their sorry figures as they left, and a wave of whispers and discussions erupted. This matter was over. The Great Guardian waved his hand and ordered 20 golden armored guards to drag away the unconscious prodigies of the Chu Yun Empire and bring them back to Chu Yun Palace to recuperate. Ji Tianxing didn't stay any longer. He turned around and was about to leave the plaza. However, right at this moment, a vigorous voice suddenly sounded in the square. "Wait!" The sudden cold voice made the prodigies of the various nations quiet down. Even the great guardian and the 6 divine envoys who were about to leave stopped when they heard the voice. A tall man in a dark green robe walked out of the crowd of the great Qian Empire. Under everyone's gaze, he stepped into the air and caught up to Ji Tianxing. He stood 100 steps away from him. This man had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. His face was upright and his body was tall and straight. He exuded a powerful aura, and there was a trace of arrogance between his brows. When the prodigies of the various nations saw his face, they immediately revealed a puzzled expression and began to whisper to each other. "Isn't that the number 1 prodigy of the great Qian Empire, Qian Feiyang? What does he want to do? He actually stopped Ji Tianxing? Could it be that he wants to teach Ji Tianxing a lesson? That's impossible, right? Qian Feiyang is from the great Qian Empire. How could he help someone from the Chuyan Empire?" Chapter 1538. Everyone had a premonition that Qian Feiyang had a motive for standing up now. The geniuses who were about to leave all returned to the square and watched. Even the chief enforcer and the 6 god envoys were puzzled. They didn't know what Qian Feiyang wanted to do. Ji Tianxing glanced at Qian Feiyang and said indifferently, "What's the matter?" Qian Feiyang stared at him, his body emitting an arrogant aura. He didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. "Ji Tianxing, many people think that you've received the God Master's favor and brought about the oracle. From the first sentence of the oracle, it does make some sense. But I don't believe it, and I can't accept this result. It's not just me, but the geniuses of the other countries also don't believe it." Qian Feiyang's expression was arrogant, and his tone was full of energy. Following his words, the young geniuses of the other countries started to discuss. Indeed, nearly half of the geniuses didn't believe that the oracle was for Ji Tianxing, and they all agreed with Qian Feiyang. Ji Tianxing frowned and looked at him coldly. "It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not." "No, it's very important." Qian Feiyang shook his head and sneered. He said in a playful tone, "In terms of martial talent, you may not be very strong. In terms of strength, you're not even in the top 5, and you're even weaker than me. Including me, there are at least 5 geniuses more qualified than you to receive the oracle." "So?" Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows, his tone still indifferent. Qian Feiyang's body emitted a strong fighting spirit. He stared at him and said word by word, "So, I want to challenge you in front of everyone. I just want everyone to see the truth. The God Master's oracle was definitely not for you. I'm more qualified than you to receive the God Master's favor." His thunderous voice echoed in the square, filled with a domineering and confident aura. The geniuses of the other countries immediately understood Qian Feiyang's goal. They all burst into discussion and cheered. Many people were cheering for him. Ji Tianxing furrowed his brows and coldly looked at Qian Feiyang. He was thinking, this Qian Feiyang is a scheming bastard. He openly challenged me in front of everyone, making it difficult for me to refuse. If he defeats me in front of everyone, not only will he diminish my prestige, but also raise his reputation. Previously, Jiao had given him a name list that recorded the information of the 6 nations' geniuses. He knew that Qian Feiyang was the great's number 1 genius. This person had strength at the 6th firmament essence soul realm. He was ranked 4th among the geniuses of the 6 states, second only to Jiang Ningxue. Ji Tianxing thought to himself, ever since I entered Mount God's Seal, I haven't fought in front of anyone. 2. Although I injured Lan Yiqing, Guanglong, and the others, and shocked the geniuses of the other countries with the power of the oracle. But that's not enough. I'm the Outcloud Empire's number 1 genius. It's normal for me to defeat Lan Yiqing and Guanglong. Since Qian Feiyang challenged me, I'll use this opportunity to crush him in front of everyone. He wants to trample on my prestige. I'll use him as a stepping stone to intimidate the other geniuses. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing made up his mind. At this moment, Qian Feiyang saw him frowning and not saying anything. Qian Feiyang sneered contemptuously. Ji Tianxing, you're so quiet. Don't tell me you're rejecting my challenge? This isn't a personal grudge. It's just a friendly spar. We can go to the arena and ask the divine envoys to supervise the battle. The great guardian frowned and shouted in a stern voice, Qian Feiyang. I just announced the result. The divine master gave the divine oracle to Ji Tianxing. He's the son of the divine oracle. Ji Tianxing fought the Outcloud Empire's disciples alone and defeated them all. That's enough to prove his strength. Moreover, he just fought and used up a lot of his spiritual power. How can you take advantage of him and challenge him now? Although the Great Guardian's words were fair and impartial, the Great Guardian's words were not biased. However, when many geniuses heard this, they felt that the head enforcer was biased towards Ji Tianxing and felt sour in their hearts. Qian Feiyang saluted the Great Guardian and smiled. Great Guardian, the battle just now seemed wonderful and shocking. But it was actually very ordinary. I can defeat the Outcloud Empire's trash alone. He then looked at Ji Tianxing and said in a mocking tone, since you used up a lot of your spiritual power and don't dare to accept the challenge, we'll do it another day. I'll give you 3 days to recuperate. 3 days later, we'll meet on the arena. Before he could finish, Ji Tianxing interrupted him and said in a low voice, there's no need for another day. Let's do it now, right here. Hearing that Shen Tian agreed on the spot, Qian Feiyang sneered. The young geniuses from various countries also cheered excitedly, their faces full of anticipation. To the crowd, Ji Tianxing's bullying of the Outcloud Empire's geniuses seemed arrogant and domineering. But it wasn't that difficult. Only by fighting with the top geniuses could one's true strength be shown. It was more exciting and more enjoyable. The Great Guardian was stunned. He frowned and looked at Ji Tianxing. He secretly transmitted his voice, Ji Tianxing, don't try to be brave. If you lose, it will affect my and the oracle's prestige. Ji Tianxing transmitted his voice back. He said with certainty, a mere Qian Feiyang is nothing to worry about. If he wants to use me as a stepping stone, he's destined to break his leg. Seeing that he was so confident, the Great Guardian didn't say anything else. Swoosh! He waved his palms and shot out a 7-colored light screen that covered the sky and covered half of the square. A saint-level defensive array was immediately formed, protecting the square in front of the palace. The Great Guardian, the 6 oracles, and the geniuses from various countries all retreated outside the array, leaving only Ji Tianxing and Qian Feiyang in the square. No matter how they fought, they wouldn't destroy the buildings outside the array, nor would they hurt the people outside. The two stood in the ruined square, staring at each other coldly, secretly accumulating their aura and magic power. Qian Feiyang said contemptuously, what a pity. You just got the oracle. Before you can enjoy the glory of the oracle, you're going to be stepped on by me. I want everyone to see that I'm more outstanding than the oracle's son. From now on, the glory and resources that should have belonged to you will belong to me. Ji Tianxing looked at him expressionlessly. He wasn't angry at all. He said indifferently, your plan is good, but it's destined to fail. You'll become another clown. Chapter 1539. Qian Feiyang purposely infuriated Ji Tianxing to affect his mental state and combat strength. However, Ji Tianxing was not affected at all. Instead, his confident and arrogant words angered Qian Feiyang so much that he frowned and his expression turned cold. However, he immediately calmed down and retaliated with an even more arrogant tone. What's the use of a sharp tongue? I've long reached the 6th level of the Essence Soul Realm, while you're only at the 5th level. Furthermore, your dermic powers have been greatly depleted. Don't say that I'm bullying you. I can easily defeat you without using any Dharma treasures or weapons. Ji Tianxing revealed a look of pity and chuckled. I advise you to take out your Dharma treasures and go all out. Otherwise, you won't even be able to last 3 moves before collapsing. How arrogant! Qian Feiyang grew even angrier as his eyes emitted a dense cold light. He had to admit that he was not as calm as Ji Tianxing in terms of mental state. There was no way he could win in a verbal battle. He decided not to waste any more words and immediately took out a dark golden spear and gripped it tightly in his hands. It was a golden divine spear about 2 meters long and as thick as a child's arm. A golden coiling dragon was engraved on the spear's body. The long and narrow diamond-shaped spear blade flickered with a resplendent golden light and released an extremely domineering aura. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that this was a superior-grade essence soul realm dharma treasure with extraordinary power. Jianxia, cut the crap. I'll definitely defeat you within 10 moves with this coiling dragon spear. Xianxia roared with an imposing aura. Flames surged from his body as he brandished the coiling dragon spear with both hands and stabbed it at Jianxia. Otherworldly dragon. The coiling dragon spear stabbed with all its might, emitting a dazzling red light and letting out a high-pitched dragon roar. In the sky, 100-feet-long fiery red dragon immediately condensed. It swooped down from the sky and pounced at Jianxia. Immediately, the entire square was enveloped by a dazzling fiery light, turning it dark red. The terrifyingly high temperature burned the air, turning the defensive array into a vacuum. Jianxia was in the sea of fire and was about to be pounced on by the fiery red dragon. At the critical moment, he calmly stretched out his hand, and a black sword appeared in his palm. This treasure sword was pitch black and icy cold. A black dragon coiled around the hilt of the sword. This was the black dragon sword formed by the little black dragon. Draw your sword. Jianxia let out a cold snort. His mind merged with the black dragon sword, and with all his strength, he slashed out 100-meter-long pitch-black sword light. Boom! Amidst a deafening muffled sound, the pitch-black greatsword struck the fiery red dragon head-on. The giant dragon immediately collapsed, exploding into a sky full of flowing flames, like a torrential downpour on the square. However, the power of the pitch-black sword didn't decrease in the slightest as it slashed at Xianxia. Xianxia reacted quickly and used the coiling dragon spear to block in front of him, dodging the attack. He was sent flying backward, crashing heavily into the light wall of the defensive formation. Without waiting for him to counterattack, Jianxia had already used the divine concealment step and appeared in front of him, slashing out a second time with all his might. Heaven-cleaving sword. The black dragon sword emitted a golden light that soared into the sky. It condensed into a gigantic golden sword that was hundreds of meters long and instantly struck Xianxia. Kaboom! Another thunderous boom rang out, and Xianxia was sent flying again by the gigantic sword. His magic power shield, green robe, and soft armor were all shattered into pieces. When he crawled up from the rubble, his clothes were already ragged, his hair was disheveled, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. Seeing this scene, the chief guardian and the 6 gods' envoys all revealed shocked expressions. The various prodigies were also shocked, and they all let out cries of disbelief. Wow! Jianxia is actually this strong? They've only exchanged 2 moves, and Xianxia is already beaten to the point where he can't even fight back? That shouldn't be. Xianxia is a prodigy ranked 4th. How can he not be able to block Jianxia? Looks like we've all underestimated Jianxia. That guy's true strength is too terrifying. I didn't believe that Jianxia was the child of God before, but now, I'm starting to believe it. The exclamations and discussions of the crowd made Xianxia feel extremely humiliated. Just now, he had boasted in front of everyone that he would defeat Jianxia in front of everyone and take away his honor and cultivation resources. Now, he had been beaten to a pulp after exchanging 2 moves with Jianxia. This was too embarrassing. In his grief and indignation, Xianxia's eyes burned with fury. He shouted angrily, "I thought that I could defeat you with 80% of my strength. I didn't expect you to be so capable. Since that's the case, try my ultimate skill." As he spoke, he waved the coiling dragon spear with both hands, and golden spear shadows covered the sky. In the sky behind him, a dazzling flame lit up, and a 100 feet tall shadow appeared. It was a fiery divine lion the size of a mountain, and it was his primordial spirit Dharma form. Heavenly Fire 10,000 Dragons Spear. Xianxia unleashed all his strength and used his ultimate skill. Tens of thousands of huge golden spear shadows covered the sky above the square, forming a dense forest of spears. The fiery divine lion also waved its sharp claws, opened its huge mouth, and spat out crimson flames that covered the sky and poured down like a flood. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The endless heavenly fire merged with the tens of thousands of spear shadows and bombarded Ji Tianxing like rain. In an instant, the entire square was covered by the spear shadows. The square was in chaos, and no one could see where Ji Tianxing was. Boom, boom, booms, boom. A series of loud explosions shook the sky. The entire square began to shake violently as the raging fire and golden light fiercely battered the defensive formation. Fortunately, the array was a saint-level array and was unbreakable. The destructive shockwaves could not affect the people outside the array. However, everyone's hearts were in their throats. They all stared at the array with wide eyes, waiting for the result. After a while, the golden light and flames that covered the sky dissipated. Qian Feiyang stood proudly in the sky with the coiling dragon spear in his hand, looking majestic. In the sky opposite him, Ji Tianxing also stood proudly in the sky. Not only was he unscathed, but his long hair was not messy at all, and his white robe was still as white as snow. Even if the torrential fire poured down and the myriad dragon spear attacked, it could not harm a single hair on his body. Qian Feiyang was dumbfounded. His eyes were wide open, and his heart was filled with shock. The geniuses of various countries were also dumbfounded, and they all exclaimed. Ji Tianxing looked at Qian Feiyang with a disdainful sneer. "Is this your ultimate skill? How disappointing! Now, I'll show you what a true ultimate skill is." As he spoke, a golden light surged out from behind him, and a golden sword that was thousands of feet tall appeared. It was his primordial spirit Dharma form. His body turned into a raging inferno and merged with the 1,000-foot-tall golden sword of primordial spirit. Vermilion Bird's sacred sword. The giant sword that was surrounded by flames and purple lightning slashed down from the sky toward Qian Feiyang with a power that could split the sky and earth. The overwhelming flames and lightning condensed into the shadow of a vermilion bird that was as large as a mountain. The entire square was covered by flames and lightning, and the space was in chaos. Chapter 1540. Qian Feiyang's expression changed drastically as he looked at the giant sword that was slashing toward him. His eyes were filled with fear. He didn't expect Ji Tianxing to be able to use such a miraculous sword technique and unleash such terrifying power. At this critical moment, he could only unleash all of his dermic powers and hold the coiling dragon spear to meet the giant sword. One spear to end the universe. He let out a low roar and used another trump card. Vast dermic powers poured into the coiling dragon spear, turning it into a giant dragon spear that was hundreds of feet long. A golden dragon's shadow also appeared. The golden dragon spear unleashed an extremely powerful force and pierced toward the giant sword. This spear seemed to be able to pierce through the sky and destroy all obstacles. Its aura was extremely violent. This was Qian Feiyang's most powerful technique. He didn't want to reveal this trump card and planned to use it in the assessment half a year later. But now he had to use it in advance. Kaboom! With a loud explosion that shook the 9 heavens, the vermilion bird's sacred sword and the golden dragon spear collided, unleashing a torrent of golden light and flames. In an instant, the golden dragon spear that was hundreds of feet long was smashed into pieces by the giant sword and exploded. Then, the vermilion bird's sacred sword slashed at Qian Feiyang and slammed into the ground of the plaza. With a loud rumble, the entire plaza was split into 2 halves by the giant sword and a wide gully appeared in the middle. Endless amounts of gravel and dust surged into the sky, obscuring the scene inside the array. Outside the array, everyone held their breaths and stared at the flames and lightning inside the array, searching for Ji Tianxing and Qian Feiyang's figures. Nobody knew who would emerge victorious in the clash of the two's ultimate killer moves. Would Qian Feiyang defeat Ji Tianxing and become famous on Mount Godseal and be valued and nurtured by the Clear Sky Pagoda? Or would Ji Tianxing defeat Qian Feiyang in a domineering manner and prove the extraordinary talent of the Son of God? No one could tell, but they were all looking forward to the outcome. After a long time, the dust and the brilliance of spells in the great array gradually dissipated. He saw that the entire square had turned into ruins. There was a huge gully on the ground, and the surroundings were full of holes and cracks. In the sky, there was only a proud and aloof figure in a white robe. He held a black sword and stood with his hands behind his back. His body was not tall and sturdy, but it was as imposing as a mountain, making people look up to him. Without a doubt, this was Ji Tianxing. He was not injured at all. His expression was normal as he calmly looked down at the ravine on the ground. As for Qian Feiyang, he was struggling to crawl out of the wide gully. When he climbed out of the gully and stood in the square, everyone was dumbfounded. His hands were empty. The coiling dragon spear had been knocked away long ago, stuck in the ruins at the edge of the square. The jade crown on his head was also shattered, and his long hair was disheveled and curly, like a chicken nest on his head. His clothes were ragged, and his entire body was covered with bloody holes and wounds. He was charred black and badly mutilated. His right shoulder was empty. His entire right arm had been blasted into smithereens, and the wound was charred black like charcoal. This kind of injury was really too miserable. Compared to Ji Tianxing, who was not injured at all, the difference was too great. It was clear who won and who lost. Before the fight, Qian Feiyang had arrogantly said that he could easily defeat Ji Tianxing without using any magical treasures or weapons. Ji Tianxing had fought back then. If he did not use any magical treasures or weapons, he would not even be able to last 3 moves and would be beaten down. Now, the two of them had exchanged 3 moves. Qian Feiyang had used his magical treasure, the coiling dragon spear, but he was still defeated by Ji Tianxing's sword. He was seriously injured, and his right arm was chopped off. Not only the geniuses of the 6 nations, even the Great Guardian and the 6 gods' envoys did not expect this result. The difference in strength between the 4th-ranked Qian Feiyang and Ji Tianxing was actually so great. After a few seconds of silence, everyone immediately burst out in exclamations and discussions in disbelief. This is too unbelievable. Ji Tianxing only used 3 moves to defeat Qian Feiyang. If I did not see it with my own eyes, I would definitely not believe it. Ji Tianxing at the 5th Firmament Essence Soul Realm is actually several times stronger than Qian Feiyang at the 6th Firmament. Ji Tianxing defeated Qian Feiyang despite being at a higher level. Furthermore, he only used 3 moves. This is practically a miracle. As expected of the son of the oracle who is favored by the divine master. He is too heaven-defying. After witnessing this miracle with their own eyes, the geniuses of the various nations no longer had any doubts about Ji Tianxing's identity as the son of the oracle. Many geniuses who had been watching coldly from the sidelines were now filled with envy and reverence for him. Those who had mocked and criticized him were so ashamed that their faces flushed red when they recalled what they had said. They wished they could find a hole to hide in. The Great Guardian and the 6 gods' envoys also revealed relieved smiles. After all, Ji Tianxing had crushed Qian Feiyang in an invincible manner to obtain victory. This proved that their judgment was right. Ji Tianxing was the son of the oracle. Just as the crowd was cheering and discussing, Ji Tianxing spoke. He looked at Qian Feiyang expressionlessly and asked, "I said that I would only need 3 moves to defeat you. Are you convinced now?" Qian Feiyang stood in the ruins in tattered clothes. His left hand was clutching his mangled right shoulder as his eyes shimmered with a cold glint. A severed arm could still regrow through recuperation. However, the defeat and humiliation that Ji Tianxing had brought him could never be washed away. He stared intently at Ji Tianxing as he enunciated each word with a hoarse voice. "Ji Tianxing, I admit that you are indeed very strong. However, I will defeat you sooner or later to wash away my humiliation." Ji Tianxing said indifferently, "You have already been defeated by me. What future do you have to talk about? Do you want to wash away your humiliation? You will never have the chance in this lifetime." His tone was very calm, as though he was stating a fact. But in Qian Feiyang's ears, it was incomparably ear-piercing and heart-wrenching. Ji Tianxing's arrogance and contempt came from the bottom of his heart and soul. It was absolutely not intentional. Qian Feiyang could feel that Ji Tianxing did not place him in his sights at all, let alone treat him as an opponent. Just as Ji Tianxing said, he was just a stepping stone. His heart was filled with rage and humiliation, but he could only grit his teeth and forcefully endure it. He silently walked out of the defensive grand array and left the plaza in front of the hall. He was not willing to stay for a second longer and did not want to say a word more either. That would be seeking his own humiliation. In the martial arts world, it was the law of the jungle to begin with. Martial arts cultivation was also 100 barges striving against the current, competing with others, battling with heaven and earth. Every genius, every martial arts powerhouse, would do their best to vie for cultivation resources. Xianxia wanted to rise up and obtain the vast heaven pagoda's high regard and grooming. He naturally had to rack his brains to find opportunities. Previously, Ji Tianxing was a nobody. Xianxia completely disdained to pay attention to him. Currently, Ji Tianxing's limelight was at its peak. If he could trample him underfoot, Xianxia would gain both fame and fortune. His thoughts were beyond criticism. His plan was also very perfect. It was just a pity that he underestimated Ji Tianxing's strength, causing himself to land in a humiliating and wretched state. Chapter 1541. After this battle, Ji Tianxing became famous on the Mount of Canonization. He replaced Xianxia and became the fourth most powerful of the 6 states. None of the geniuses dared to belittle him or talk about him behind his back. Everyone understood that this son of Oracle deserved his title and that he would rise rapidly and become famous in the 6 states. After the battle, Ji Tianxing didn't linger. He left the plaza and went back to the Chamber of Mystical Books. Chief Guardian and the 6 messengers left as well. Only the geniuses from different states stayed in the plaza. They gathered in 2s and 3s and discussed what happened. At the edge of the plaza, Lu Li looked on coldly. A glint of coldness flickered in his eyes. He wanted to use this opportunity to win over Ji Tianxing and even recruit him. However, today, Lu Li became a laughingstock. On the other hand, Ji Tianxing became famous. He became the 4th most popular genius and the son of Oracle. Ji Tianxing's behavior proved that Lu Li's efforts were ineffective. Ji Tianxing didn't take Lu Li seriously at all. The sense of failure and humiliation made Lu Li too ashamed to stay at the Mount of Canonization. He wanted to leave at once. Lu Li looked at Jiang Ningxue and the other geniuses of the Empire of Thousand Snow and said, "The pilgrimage is over. It is not suitable for me to stay at the Mount of Canonization. I will go back to my country soon. Stay at the Mount of Canonization and keep a close eye on Ji Tianxing. Try your best to monitor his every move and find a chance to report to me." The young geniuses nodded. Only Jiang Ningxue seemed to be hesitating. Lu Li looked at her calmly and said, "Swear, Ji Tianxing is cunning and cunning. You don't have to get close to him in case you get hurt. You just need to cultivate and work hard to improve your abilities. I will go back and report to my father. I will find a way to deal with him." Jiang Ningxue immediately let out a sigh of relief. She nodded and said, "Shui, will remember your highness' order. I won't let you down." Lu Li couldn't help but frown when he heard these words that sounded a little distant. He stared at Jiang Ningxue and observed her for a while. Then he noticed something. In the past, Jiang Ningxue was deeply in love with him. When she looked at him, her eyes were always filled with tenderness and shyness. But now, Jiang Ningxue's eyes were calm and cold, without a trace of affection. How shrewd was Lu Li? He understood that Jiang Ningxue was still angry about what had happened before. Her affection for him had faded a lot. When he thought of this, he couldn't help but send a voice transmission to her. "Shui, don't take what happened before to heart. I couldn't disobey the emperor's orders and had no other choice." Jiang Ningxue didn't appreciate it. She cupped her hands and saluted him. With a cold expression, she said, "Your Highness, you worry too much." As a citizen of the Thousand Snow Empire, Shui should serve the country. Lu Li frowned. He wanted to say something more, but he didn't know where to start. In the end, he could only sigh silently and leave the square with Manager Fang, the maids, and the guards. Not long afterward, Lu Li left the Mount of Investiture with the guards of honor in great numbers. Jiang Ningxue went back to the Palace of Thousand Snow. Sitting alone in the secret chamber, she was restless and could not calm down. Her mind was in a mess. Various pictures kept popping up in her mind. Lu Li used a honey trap to force her to get close to Ji Tianxing. She also saw Ji Tianxing walking around the garden with her and having a heart-to-heart talk with her. More than that, she saw how Ji Tianxing crushed the talents of the Chu Yun Empire and Qian Feiyang in a domineering manner. For some reason, Ji Tianxing's handsome and upright figure, his imposing manner of looking down at the world, were deeply engraved in her mind. She could not erase them. In the depth of her mind, she even had a strange idea. Lu Li is much weaker than Ji Tianxing in terms of tactics, means, abilities, and behavior. Their imposing manner and manners are incomparable. I love Lu Li deeply. But for the order of the Holy Emperor, in order to realize his ambition and hegemony, he is willing to sacrifice me to Ji Tianxing. In comparison with Ji Tianxing's style of doing things, he would never push his woman into another man's arms. After this incident, Jiang Ningxue was deeply disappointed in Lu Li. But for Ji Tianxing, she developed some feelings and admiration. As soon as Ji Tianxing returned to the Chamber of Divine Books, he saw Second Guardian waiting for him at the door. "Have you been serving Lu Li well these days at the Hall of Tranquility?" Second Guardian looked at him indifferently and asked in a low voice. Ji Tianxing paused for a moment. He glanced at her and nodded expressionlessly. The coldness in Second Protector's eyes softened a bit. He advised Lu Li earnestly, "Even though you are not ambitious and you are not talented enough, you must know how to judge the situation. If you can gain Lu Li's favor and guidance, you will benefit a lot. If you continue to muddle along like this, you will not be able to pass the test in a few months. By then, not only will you not be able to become a disciple, you will also fail to live up to His Highness Cultivation." Ji Tianxing said calmly, "If there is nothing else, I will take my leave now." Seeing that Lu Li did not listen to her advice and was even impatient, Second Guardian frowned with displeasure. Her eyes became cold and dignified again. "Truly, rotten wood can't be carved. How disappointing. Let me ask you, did the worship ceremony go well?" Ji Tianxing did not want to say more. He gave a brief answer, "Everything went well. Lu Li has left." Second Guardian nodded, waved her hand and said, "Then you can leave now. I will call you if I need you." Ji Tianxing turned around and went back to the secret chamber. The Second Protector looked at his back as he left. His eyes flashed with disappointment as he muttered to himself, "What an ungrateful fellow. I really don't know how a guy like him, who has neither talent nor ambition, can get His Highness care." With that said, she shook her head and disappeared into the darkness. Ji Tianxing went back to the secret chamber. He quietly channeled his energy to regulate his breathing and recover his consumed mana. 6 hours later, it was evening. His mana was fully recovered, so he ended his cultivation. At this time, a young man's voice came from outside the secret chamber. "Young Master Ji, can you show yourself?" When Ji Tianxing heard this familiar voice, he stood up and walked out of the secret chamber. At the door stood a young man in a white robe. He was more beautiful than a girl. It was Endless Void Yin. "Why you here?" Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked. Endless Void Yin smiled and explained, "Even though I cannot enter the Divine Book Pavilion without permission, I am only here to visit you. I am not here to read the books. I am here to see you and congratulate you. After today, you will be the most dazzling talent of the Mount of Gods. You have overshadowed the other 3 geniuses. Your future is limitless." Ji Tianxing did not try to be humble. He just nodded with a smile. Endless Void Yin continued, "Also, I am here to remind you of something. Today, you taught all the geniuses of the Chu Yun Empire a lesson." Chapter 1542. Yin Wu Kei's reminder warmed Ji Tianxing's heart. He smiled and nodded, "Thank you for your reminder. I know what I'm doing. No matter how much the Chu Yun Empire hates me, they wouldn't go so far as to kill me at Mount God Bestowment, right?" Yin Wu Kei smiled and shook his head. "They wouldn't go that far. Not to mention the powers behind Lan Yiqing and Kuang Long, even the Chu Yun Saint Emperor wouldn't cause trouble at Mount God Bestowment. However, you won't be able to stay at Mount God Bestowment forever. Once you leave Mount God Bestowment, you'll be in danger. Ji Tianxing nodded and said calmly, let's talk about the future in the future. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. You, on the other hand, are the only friend I can trust. Thank you for your concern and reminder. Hearing this, Yin Wu Kei's body trembled. He was obviously stunned. Soon after, a smile appeared on his beautiful face. He asked excitedly, young Master Ji, you're willing to be friends with me? You're willing to accept me? Ji Tianxing smiled and nodded. After receiving his confirmation, Yin Wu Kei became even more excited. He was so excited that his eyes shone brightly. That's great. I knew that you'd be moved by my sincerity sooner or later. Ji Tianxing thought for a while, then took out a jade slip from his interspatial ring and handed it to Yin Wu Quebec. This jade slip is for you. Take it as a gift for our first meeting. You actually prepared a gift for me? Yin Wu Kei was so happy that his eyes narrowed. He quickly took the jade slip and looked at it. He asked curiously, young Master Ji, what is this jade slip? Ji Tianxing said calmly, previously, I saw that you used the yin-yang umbrella as your natal magic treasure. There seemed to be some problems with your cultivation technique, causing you to be shackled. Your strength hasn't improved for a long time. Yin Wu Kei's eyes widened in disbelief. He asked in shock, young Master Ji, you can even see that? The cultivation technique I'm cultivating is a divine cultivation technique passed down in my Flower Moon Palace. It's a pity that every disciple who cultivates this cultivation technique will encounter the same shackles and obstacles. Ji Tianxing smiled and said, so, I found a limitless yin-yang and gave it to you. This cultivation method is most suitable for you to cultivate. It's definitely not any weaker than the cultivation methods of your Flower Moon Palace. However, the content of the technique is somewhat obscure and difficult to understand. It is a very ancient secret technique. It may be difficult for you to practice it at the beginning. But if you persevere in your cultivation, with your talent and comprehension, I believe you will soon see results. Our Flower Moon Palace's ancestral divine art is a high-grade tribulation level technique. Yin Wu Kei was astonished. He thought to himself, could the yin-yang limitless art that Mr. Ji gave me be a tribulation level divine art? As soon as he thought of this, he hurriedly handed the jade slip back to Ji Tianxing. Young Master Ji, this is a supreme grade tribulation level cultivation technique. It's a priceless divine technique. I can't accept such a valuable gift. Ji Tianxing was startled. He did not expect that Yin Wu Kei would not accept such a precious technique. He wanted to laugh in his heart and thought, a supreme grade tribulation level divine art is indeed a priceless treasure. In the divine library, only God disciples have the right to borrow it. Just this, and Yin Wu Kei does not dare to accept it. If he knew that this cultivation technique is not a tribulation level technique, but a true saint level technique, I wonder what he would think? This yin-yang limitless art was a cultivation technique that he had specially chosen for Yin Wu Quebec. In the divine library, there were tens of thousands of ancient books that Kenshin had collected. Among them, there were more than 30,000 different divine arts and secret techniques. The worst of them was a saint-level technique, and there were many god-level techniques. Because of this, the divine library of the Clear Sky Pagoda was not worth mentioning in his eyes. The cultivation techniques and secret techniques that were stored there were all trash. He looked at Yin Wu Kei and said seriously, I have no reason to take back the gift that I have given you. If you don't want to accept this cultivation technique, then I will take it back. There is no need for us to be friends. As he said that, he stretched out his hand to take the jade bamboo scroll. Yin Wu Kei's expression changed. With a whoosh, he kept the jade bamboo scroll into his interspatial ring. He laughed awkwardly and said, young Master Ji, why are you always so overbearing? Ji Tianxing frowned slightly. He thought about it seriously and said sincerely, maybe it is because I am more handsome? Yin Wu Kei was speechless. He rolled his eyes at Jiunshu. Young Master Ji, I will accept your gift. I will work hard in my cultivation and will not disappoint you. He clasped his hands at Ji Tianxing and said goodbye with a smile. Ji Tianxing nodded and watched as Yin Wu Kei turned and left. After Yin Wu Kei left, Ji Yunshu returned to the secret room and continued to cultivate. After the oracle and the public challenge, Ji Tianxing had become the most famous person on Mount God Bestowment. He wanted to cultivate quietly in the divine library and try his best to break through to the 6th level of the primordial spirit realm. However, the divine library was not destined to be peaceful. Early the next morning, Lin Daoi quickly ascended the clear sky pagoda and arrived at the divine library. Just as he entered the divine book pavilion, a black figure appeared out of thin air in front of him, blocking his path. Lin Daoi, what are you doing here at the divine library? Hearing the hoarse voice, Lin Daoi raised his head to look at the black figure. He saw the black-robed second protector staring at him coldly. He clasped his hands at the second protector and explained, "Greetings, second protector. I am here at the divine library on the orders of the great protector to find Ji Tianxing." The second protector frowned. His murky eyes flashed with anger. He shouted, "What did that kid do wrong again? Did he offend Lu Li in the Hall of Tranquility?" This sentence stunned Lin Daoi. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. He stared at the second protector with a strange expression. "What are you talking about, second protector? Ji Tianxing is a peerless genius. It is not a big deal to offend Lu Li. What is there to offend?" The second protector confirmed his guess. He said coldly, "What peerless genius? He is just a blockhead. This kid is really unrepentant. Instead of serving Lu Li well, he dares to offend him. Lin Daoi, report to the second protector later. Ask him to punish Ji Tianxing severely. Teach this kid a painful lesson." Seeing the anger between the second protector's eyebrows, Lin Daoi's expression became even more strange. "Second protector, you should tell the great protector about this matter yourself. I am just following orders." "Excuse me." With that, he ignored the second protector and walked toward Ji Tianxing's secret chamber. The second protector was confused. He felt that Lin Daoi was acting strange, so he followed him. After a while, Lin Daoi came to the door of the secret chamber and shouted seriously, "Ji Tianxing, I am Lin Daoi. I have something to ask of you." The second protector frowned and sneered, "You don't have to be so polite to a punished criminal." Chapter 1543. Second Guardian's tone was impatient and his attitude was cold. Lin Daoi felt something was wrong and frowned. But his status was one level lower than Second Guardian's, so he could not say anything. They waited for a while before the stone door of the secret chamber was opened. Ji Tianxing walked out. He glanced at Second Guardian with a straight face and asked, "What is it?" Second Protector glared at him coldly and shouted, "Yesterday, I asked you if you were serving Lu Li well. How dare you lie to me? I was right about you, rotten wood. You didn't disappoint me. Oracle Lin is here on the order of the Great Guardian. What have you done? Accept your punishment." Ji Tianxing frowned. He looked at Second Guardian indifferently and asked, "Second Guardian, I don't think I have offended you." "How dare you?" Second Guardian sneered with disdain. "What is your relationship with Lu Li? Is he your son?" Ji Tianxing asked again. Second Guardian frowned and scolded in a deep voice, "Bastard! Don't talk nonsense." Ji Tianxing's lips curled into a cold smile. "If that's not the case, then why are you protecting him?" Second Guardian sneered and said, "Lu Li is humble and polite. He is talented. He is diligent in cultivation. He is such a talented disciple. If I don't protect him, am I supposed to protect you, rotten wood?" When Lin Daoi saw that the two of them were about to quarrel, he hurriedly stepped in to mediate the situation. "Cough cough, please don't be angry. I am here for Ji Tianxing. Please let me get down to business." Only then did Second Guardian stop. He did not want to talk to Ji Tianxing anymore. Ji Tianxing did not want to talk to her either. He looked at Lin Daoi and asked, "Oracle Lin, what is it?" Lin Daoi cupped his hands toward him and quickly said, "Ji Tianxing, the Great Guardian and several divine envoys have discussed and decided to revoke your punishment. From today onwards, you don't have to stay in the divine book pavilion to clean. You can leave." Ji Tianxing looked at him expressionlessly and said in an indifferent tone, "No need. I feel that the Divine Book Pavilion is quite good. It is quiet here and very suitable for my cultivation." Lin Daoi wasn't surprised by his reaction at all. Instead, he looked worried. "Tianxing, I know that the Grand Guardian's punishment of you has indeed caused you to be wronged and your reputation to be tarnished. But you don't have to take it to heart. The Great Protector isn't targeting you. He's just handling things impartially. Now that the Great Guardian has revoked your punishment and given you a way out, why don't you take a step back as well? This is good for everyone." Ji Tianxing shook his head and said indifferently, "Oracle Lin, you've misunderstood. I'm used to living in the Divine Book Pavilion. I really don't want to leave." Sigh. Lin Daoi sighed helplessly and said with a bitter smile, "Ji Tianxing, I understand your personality. Why do you have to do this? It won't be good for anyone if things get ugly." Ji Tianxing couldn't be bothered to explain. He stretched out his hand and said, "Please go back." Lin Daoi knew that he couldn't persuade him. He could only turn and leave to report to the Great Guardian. The second guardian stood at the side and witnessed the entire process. She looked at the departing Lin Daoi and frowned at Ji Tianxing. A trace of confusion flashed across her eyes. What's going on with these two guys? Why did the Great Guardian revoke his punishment for no reason? Didn't he make a mistake and get punished by the Great Guardian? She wanted to ask Ji Tianxing what was going on, but Ji Tianxing didn't. Unfortunately, Ji Tianxing didn't even look at her. He turned and returned to the secret chamber and closed the stone door. She could only suppress her confusion and turn to leave. At the peak of Mount God, in a magnificent palace. In a spacious and bright study, the Great Guardian stood in front of the window and looked at the sea of clouds outside. He was thinking about something. At this moment, footsteps were heard at the door. A middle-aged man in a purple robe walked quickly into the study. The Great Guardian quickly turned and looked at the man in the purple robe. He asked with a dignified expression, "Lin Daoi, have you delivered my message?" Lin Daoi nodded. He looked a little hesitant, as if he wanted to say something. The Great Guardian glanced at him and frowned in confusion. He asked, "Where's Ji Tianxing? Why didn't you bring him here?" Lin Daoi had to tell the truth. He cupped his hands and reported, "Great Guardian, I've delivered your message." However, Ji Tianxing said that he's used to living in the Divine Book Pavilion. It's quiet and more suitable for cultivation. He doesn't want to leave. The Great Guardian's white eyebrows were tightly knitted. He looked both angry and amused. "This bastard is still angry with me because of what happened before. If he doesn't want to leave, do you want me to invite him personally?" Lin Daoi was also full of worry. He reminded in a low voice, "Great Guardian, His Highness protected Ji Tianxing. Now Ji Tianxing has gained the Divine Master's favor and become the Son of God. We must nurture him with all our strength. Otherwise, no one can bear the blame when the Divine Master blames us. The truth is that the worship ceremony was a misunderstanding. We can't let the Son of God bear the blame and continue to be punished in the Divine Book Pavilion." The Great Guardian nodded solemnly. "Of course, I understand this logic. Speaking of that incident, I didn't deliberately target him. It's just that I've always been strict in enforcing the law and will never allow anyone to offend the Divine Master's dignity. If I don't punish him severely, many followers will follow suit and it will definitely affect the Divine Master's prestige. Sigh. It's probably because I personally punished him and whipped him in front of everyone. That's why he has complaints in his heart?" The Great Guardian also realized that his methods back then were a little too harsh and overboard. After thinking for a while, he finally made up his mind. He waved his sleeves and said in a low voice, "Fine, since he doesn't want to take advantage of this situation, I'll go to the Divine Book Pavilion personally to invite him. Also, Lin Daoi, bring some people to tidy up the Heaven Saint Palace. Make sure it's properly tidied up and wait for Ji Tianxing to move in." With that, the Great Guardian was about to leave the study. Lin Daoi was stunned for a moment. He asked in disbelief, "Great Guardian, you're really going to invite him personally? If this matter gets out, I'm afraid it'll affect your prestige." The Great Guardian smiled nonchalantly and waved his hand. "I was once the Son of God. the Divine Master personally appointed me as the Great Guardian of the Tower. Who dares to criticize me? Moreover, I have always been impartial, and strict. Right is right and wrong is wrong. Since I've misunderstood him and done something wrong, it's only right for me to apologize to him." After hearing his words, Lin Daoyi was instantly filled with respect. He said sincerely, "The Great Guardian is indeed noble and magnanimous. You're truly a role model for our generation." The Great Guardian shook his head and said in a low voice, "You don't have to flatter me. I'm not as magnanimous as you make me out to be. The main reason is because Ji Tianxing has obtained the Divine Master's favor. He's the Son of God, the pride of the future. That's why I can treat him like this." Chapter 1544. At the Chamber of Divine Books. In a dark corner by the door, Second Guardian was resting on a jade chair with her eyes closed. On the surface, she looked like she was taking a nap. In fact, she was silently practicing a special kind of martial art. All of a sudden, heavy footsteps came from the door. A burly, white-haired elder in a silver robe stepped into the Divine Book Pavilion. Hearing the sound, Second Guardian opened her eyes at once. When she saw the man's face, she was confused. She hurried to greet him. "Great Guardian, why are you here at the Chamber of Divine Books?" It was the Great Guardian. He glanced at Second Guardian and then looked around. Calmly, he said, "I am here at the Chamber of Divine Books for business." Second Guardian thought to herself. Usually, if there was nothing important, Great Guardian would not come here even once in a few years. Not long after Lin Daoyi left, Great Guardian came. This was too much of a coincidence. Therefore, she asked tentatively, "Are you here for Ji Tianxing?" Great Guardian did not hide anything. He nodded and said, "Yes." "Where does he live? Take me to him." "It's in the secret room over there." Second Protector hurriedly led him to Ji Tianxing's secret room. On the way, she could not help but ask, "Great Guardian, what did Ji Tianxing do to make you come to him in person? Made a mistake?" The Great Guardian frowned and glanced at her with a strange expression. Second Guardian did not notice anything wrong. She continued to ask, "Did Ji Tianxing offend Lu Li? I have seen it. This guy is not ambitious and he is not talented. We gave him a chance to improve, but he did not know how to take advantage of it. He even dared to offend Lu Li. This guy is such a blockhead." Great Guardian listened to her nagging. His expression became strange. He asked in a low voice, "Second Guardian, do you have some misunderstanding about Ji Tianxing? Lu Li is good, but how can he be compared with Ji Tianxing?" The Second Guardian's body stiffened and his eyes were filled with doubt. "Great Guardian, aren't you saying the wrong thing? How could a piece of rotten wood like Ji Tianxing compare with Lu Li? Back then, I was not the only one who thought highly of Lu Li. Didn't you also think highly of him and tried your best to cultivate him?" The corners of the Great Protector's mouth twitched involuntarily, and his expression became increasingly strange. He wanted to explain, but when he reached the door of the secret chamber, he shouted, "Ji Tianxing, I have something to tell you. Come out and meet me." A majestic and vigorous voice passed through the stone door and into the secret room. After saying that, the Great Protector stood outside the door and waited quietly. The Second Guardian had some doubts in his heart. So, he stood to the side and watched coldly. After a while, the stone door of the secret chamber opened, and Ji Tianxing slowly walked out. "I only want to cultivate peacefully in the Divine Book Pavilion, but you guys keep disturbing my cultivation time and time again." He frowned slightly, as if he was unhappy that his cultivation was interrupted. Seeing him like this, the Second Guardian glared at him and scolded, "Ji Tianxing, don't be rude. The Great Protector is here in person. Why don't you salute and admit your guilt?" Before Ji Tianxing could say anything, the Great Protector glanced at her and said in a deep voice, "Second Guardian, this has nothing to do with you. Don't talk too much." The Second Guardian was stunned for a moment. A glint of shame and anger flashed through her eyes. She never expected that the Great Protector would not save her face and scold her in front of Ji Tianxing. However, it was inappropriate for her to argue with the Great Protector. She had to suppress her shame and anger and looked at Ji Tianxing coldly. The Great Protector looked at Ji Tianxing seriously and said in a solemn tone, "Ji Tianxing, I have come here in person for two things. First, the matter of the worship ceremony was due to my negligence. I made an arbitrary conclusion, which led to the misunderstanding. Regarding this matter, I would like to apologize to you in person. I hope you won't take it to heart." After he finished speaking, he formally raised his palms and cupped his hands towards Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing looked at him calmly and did not say anything. However, the coldness in his eyes faded a lot. The second guardian was watching from the side. She was dumbfounded and her eyes were wide open. "What's going on? Great Protector, why are you apologizing to him? You even saluted him? What does this kid do to deserve your apology?" The second guardian's tone was full of shock and confusion. Her calm state of mind was messed up on the spot. However, the Great Protector did not explain at all. He turned to glare at her and shouted in a deep voice, "Second guardian, please be quiet. Don't disturb my business." After being scolded again, the second guardian seemed to wake up from a dream and quickly shut her mouth. However, the shock and confusion in her heart were about to explode. If she had not seen it with her own eyes, she would never believe that the Great Protector would salute and apologize to someone who had committed a crime. The most important thing was that this person who had committed a crime was of low status, low aptitude, and a blockhead who did not want to improve himself. At this time, the Great Protector said to Ji Tianxing, "Second, I have decided to revoke your punishment. You don't need to stay in the Divine Book Pavilion anymore. I know that you need a quiet place to cultivate. Therefore, I have sent people to clean up the Heaven Saint Palace. In the future, that will be your cave abode. You can move there to live and cultivate." Hearing this, the second guardian was dumbfounded again. His light green eyes widened, revealing a look of deep astonishment. She could not believe that the Great Protector valued and protected Ji Tianxing so much that he had bestowed the Heaven Saint Palace to him as his cave abode. The Heaven Saint Palace was located at the peak of God Bestowment Mountain. Among the many palaces, it was the palace with the most abundant spiritual energy. It was the most suitable place for cultivation. Furthermore, one could occasionally receive divine light from the God Nation, which could greatly increase one's strength. It was not an exaggeration to say that not only did all the God disciples dream of living in the Heaven Saint Palace, but even the God envoys and the Great Protectors wanted to live there. However, the Heaven Saint Palace had always been empty. No one lived there. Only the children of God who were favored by the God Master, or the God Master's sons and princesses, were qualified to live there. The second guardian could not understand why the Great Protector had bestowed the Heaven Saint Palace to Ji Tianxing. Was the Great Protector crazy? Incomparable confusion and shock caused her hands, which were hidden in her sleeves, to tremble uncontrollably. However, she could only endure it. She did her best to endure and did not dare to interrupt the Great Protector. In fact, Ji Tianxing did not bear a grudge against the Great Protector. In the past 2 months, he had already understood that the Great Protector was a fair and impartial person. He was very strict in handling matters. If there was a grudge in his heart, it was because the Great Protector had sentenced him to 70 lashes. This punishment was too harsh. However, the Great Protector had personally come to the Divine Book Pavilion to invite him. He had even bowed and apologized in person. This showed that he was very sincere. In addition, the Great Protector had revoked his punishment and had even bestowed the Heaven Saint Palace to him as his cave abode. Chapter 1545. Seeing that Ji Tianxing had finally agreed, the head guardian secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at Ji Tianxing and continued, "It's best that you can understand my good intentions. From now on, you will move to the Heaven Saint Palace, but the Divine Book Pavilion will still be open to you. You can enter and exit freely at any time. In addition, I have a token here that you deserve as well. With this token, you can freely enter and exit the God Bestowment Mountain, the various palaces, forbidden grounds, and the clear sky pagoda." As he spoke, a golden light flashed in the head guardian's hand, and a palm-sized token with a golden dragon engraved on it appeared. This token was very exquisite and beautiful. A golden dragon was engraved on the front, and two ancient words were engraved on the back. They were the words, Great Sky. Not only was the token made of special material comparable to a top-notch sage artifact, but it also contained a mysterious and powerful aura. That aura was like that of a god, dignified and sacred, making people revere it. When the second guardian saw this token, she was in a mess, and her eyes shone brightly. She could no longer hold back her confusion and shock as she exclaimed, "The god's son token? Oh my god! Head guardian, you actually took out the god's son token and want to give it to Xianxia." Since ancient times, only the son of God who was favored by the divine master, as well as the divine master's outstanding descendants, could possess the god's son token. Our clear sky pagoda only keeps one god's son token for the future son of God. Head guardian, you actually want to give the god's son token to Xianxia so carelessly? Are you crazy? Or am I muddle-headed? Ever since the head guardian had entered the divine book pavilion, he had done many things that shocked the second guardian. Now, he even wanted to give the god's son token to Xianxia. This made the second guardian completely lose her composure. She no longer had her usual cold and indifferent temperament, and her tone was agitated as she questioned. She was just short of jumping up and down. Xianxia and the head guardian both turned to look at the second guardian. One of them had an indifferent expression, while the other had a strange expression. Neither of them spoke. One was too lazy to explain, while the other disdained to speak. Xianxia took the godchild token and put it away. He cupped his hands at the great guardian and said, "Thank you, great guardian." The great protector said, "Pack up and prepare. This seat will bring you to the Heaven Saint Palace now." "I have nothing to pack. I can leave at any time," Xianxia replied calmly. "Then let's go." The great protector nodded and led him away. Even after the two of them left the divine book pavilion and disappeared outside the door, the second protector was still stunned outside the door. How could this be? What did Xianxia do? He had actually made the great guardian value him so highly that he had even given him the deity token? Could it be that Xianxia had gained the favor of the Lord of Gods and attracted the oracle to descend? This was impossible. How could someone like him, who was so unambitious, receive an oracle? If even he can get the oracle, then at least half of the geniuses in the various countries can become the children of oracle. The second protector murmured in a daze. Her eyes changed wildly, like a crazy old woman. It was a pity that Xianxia and the great protector had both left. No one had explained the reason to her. She had always stayed in the divine book pavilion and had not left the clear sky pagoda for many years. She also did not know what had happened outside. Incomparable doubts and shock filled her heart, but she could not find an answer. There were more than 30 palaces of various sizes at the peak of the God-Sealing Mountain. The arrangement of these palaces corresponded to the positions of the 36 Big Dipper stars, containing the profound and unfathomable truths of heaven and earth. In the center of the 30 palaces was the sacred and majestic clear sky pagoda. This was the divine pagoda closest to the divine nations and also the holy land of the 6 great empires. Behind the clear sky pagoda, there was a vast palace 10,000 feet away. It was the Heaven Saint Palace. This palace occupied an area of 2.5 miles. It was built to be rather vast and majestic. The palace was dazzling and resplendent. Everywhere was exquisite, luxurious, and sacred, just like a heavenly palace. The great protector brought Xianxia to the entrance of the Heaven Saint Palace and then turned to leave. Lin Daoi was already waiting at the entrance. When he saw Xianxia arrive, he led him into the palace. As the two of them walked deeper into the palace, Lin Daoi introduced him to the situation of the Heaven Saint Palace. The Heaven Saint Palace has been idle for many years. Only the descendant of the Son of God and the Divine Master can stay here. Previously, His Highness Jiao stayed in this palace. The Heaven Saint Palace occupies an area of 2.5 miles. It is truly vast, so it is divided into 4 courtyards: the east, south, west, and north. Previously, His Highness Jiao stayed in the north courtyard. The Great Protector arranged for you to stay in the East Courtyard. There are hundreds of guards and maids waiting at your beck and call. In addition, the Heaven Saint Palace has a divine great array that can draw the Heaven-Earth Spirit Chi in a radius of 100,000 miles and gather it in the secret rooms of the 4 courtyards. Those 4 secret rooms have powerful ancient divine arrays that can change the flow of time. In the secret room of the East Courtyard, the flow of time is 5 times that of the outside world. If you cultivate in the secret room for 5 days, only 1 day will pass in the outside world. At this point, Lin Daoyi revealed a smile and said emotionally, the most heaven-defying things in the Heaven Saint Palace are those 4 secret rooms. They can actually change the flow of time. It is simply the work of a god. Not to mention the god disciples, even I and the other great protectors yearn for those 4 secret rooms. He had originally thought that Ji Tianxing would be wild with excitement after hearing this. After all, a secret room that could increase one's cultivation speed by 5 times was something that even martial saints yearned for. However, he discovered that Ji Tianxing's expression was calm. He only smiled and nodded, not making any comments. This made him very suspicious. Did Ji Tianxing not understand the meaning of time acceleration, or had he already seen such a miracle? The 2 of them passed through the corridor and garden and stepped into the East Courtyard. Lin Daoyi continued, Ji Tianxing, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the Heaven Saint Palace is about 5 times that of the outside world. If you cultivate in the secret room, your cultivation speed will increase by at least a few times. Furthermore, the secret room has a large amount of spirit pills, primordial spirit pills, and various cultivation resources. You can use them as you wish. On the God Bestowment Mountain, the Son of God has an extremely high status and authority. He will also have the most abundant cultivation resources. Therefore, after you enter the Heaven Saint Palace, you only need to concentrate on cultivating. All the trivial matters will be handled by the maids and guards. If there is nothing important, no one will disturb you. If you really encounter something important, I will personally inform you. After Lin Daoyi explained in detail, Ji Tianxing basically understood the situation in the Heaven Saint Palace. He sent Lin Daoyi away and strolled alone in the East Courtyard, admiring the beautiful scenery. After walking around, he discovered that the situation was just as Lin Daoyi had said. The Heaven Saint Palace was really a holy land for cultivation. He thought to himself, originally, with my cultivation speed, I would need at least a few years to break through to the 6th level of the primordial spirit realm. Chapter 1546. A few days after Ji Tianxing moved into the Heaven Saint Palace, the news spread out. When the geniuses from the various countries heard about this, they were all extremely envious and jealous. Only a few people had heard of the Heaven Saint Palace and knew that it was a sacred cultivation ground on Mount God Bestowment. Only the gods' sons and princesses could stay there. Most people did not know about the Heaven Saint Palace, but now that they heard about its holiness and uniqueness, their eyes turned red with jealousy. For a few days, the geniuses from the various countries could not calm down as they vied to discuss this matter. But everyone knew that it was useless to be jealous. Ji Tianxing was the son of God, and staying in the Heaven Saint Palace was his reward. Qin Zhangqiong, Song Zhanyu, and Jiang Ningxue were secretly anxious and worried. They knew that after Ji Tianxing moved into the Heaven Saint Palace, his strength would increase several times faster. They could only cultivate harder and work harder to increase their strength so that they would not be surpassed by Ji Tianxing in the God-Disciple test in a few months. Unknowingly, half a month had passed. In this half a month, Ji Tianxing had been cultivating in seclusion in the secret chamber. The secret chamber in the East Court did not disappoint him. Not only was the heaven and earth spirit chi extremely rich, but it also stored a huge amount of spirit stones, elixirs, and other resources. Furthermore, the ancient divine array in the secret chamber was operating, and the flow of time was 5 times faster than the outside world. Only half a month had passed in the outside world, but he had already cultivated in the secret chamber for more than 70 days. The results of this cultivation were remarkable. His strength had increased again, and he was even closer to the 6th level of the Essence Soul realm. Furthermore, he had finally comprehended the essence of the sixth sword of the burial of heaven, and finally mastered the broken moon sword. The power and exquisiteness of the broken moon sword far exceeded the previous 5 sword moves. If a godly realm expert used this move, he would be able to split the moon in half. It was extremely powerful. To test the power of this sword move, Ji Tianxing entered Kenshin's tomb with his primordial spirit. He flew to the edge of the dark space, condensed a golden sword with his dermic powers, and used the broken moon sword. 1,000-foot-long sword beam slashed out and struck the gray fog, creating a blank area of dozens of miles in the fog. On the grayish-white ground, a large area of array patterns and veins naturally appeared. The empty space was already close to 200 miles in radius. Countless array patterns and profundities could be seen. However, this was only the tip of the iceberg. Ji Tianxing sighed in his heart. He wondered how big this ancient divine array was. What secrets were they hiding? After he finished cultivating, he got up and left the secret room. The golden-armored guard guarding the door immediately bowed respectfully. He walked out of the east courtyard, passed through the garden and several corridors, and walked towards the center of the Heaven Saint Palace. The central area was the intersection of the east, south, west, and north courtyards. There was an ancient altar that was 300 meters tall. This pyramid-like altar was called the Holy Altar. Previously, Lin Daoyi had reminded Ji Tianxing that this saint altar was the core of the Heaven Saint Palace and also the foundation of several god arrays. The Holy Altar had a very powerful effect that was comparable to the top sacred medicine in the world. If one cultivated on the Holy Altar, it could increase one's comprehension, aptitude, and potential in a short period of time. It could help a cultivator break through bottlenecks and shackles, breaking through to a higher realm. Especially for primordial soul realm cultivators, cultivating on the Holy Altar was the most beneficial. In addition, Tribulation realm cultivators could also use the Holy Altar to increase their chances of successfully passing the tribulation. There was a saying in the martial world that less than 1 in 10 would survive the heavenly tribulation. This meant that Tribulation realm cultivators had less than 1 in 10 chances of successfully passing the heavenly tribulation. Since ancient times, it was unknown how many outstanding martial arts geniuses had ultimately perished under the heavenly tribulation. Because of this, there were countless primordial soul realm cultivators in the world, but very few tribulation realm cultivators. Those who could successfully pass the 9th heavenly tribulation and reach the martial sage realm were even fewer. This holy altar could increase the chances of passing the heavenly tribulation. One could imagine how powerful its effect was. However, Ji Tianxing was heading to the holy altar for another reason. Previously, Lin Daoyi had told him that every year, on the 15th day of March, June, September, and December, there might be a divine light shining from the kingdom of God and landing on the holy altar. It was said that it was a spiritual spring in the kingdom of God. Occasionally, the 9 heavens spiritual liquid would leak out and turn into the rainbow divine light. The divine light had incredible effects. Not only could it increase one's cultivation, but it could also help one break through 1 or 2 realms. It also had powerful healing effects. Even if one's body was shattered, after bathing in the divine light, one's body could be reconstructed. However, the divine light would only descend once a year on one of the 4 days. Today was the 15th day of March. Ji Tianxing decided to try his luck. If he was lucky enough to encounter the divine light, his cultivation could increase tremendously and he could break through to the 6th level of the primordial soul realm. 15 minutes later, he arrived at the bottom of the holy altar. He saw a dark golden holy altar that was 1,000 feet tall. It sat on the flat ground. Around the holy altar stood more than 30 statues of divine beasts. They formed a circle and guarded the holy altar. The holy altar was built with more than 10,000 boulders. There were all kinds of precious divine jade and gems in the middle. From the bottom of the holy altar to the top, there were a total of 99 steps. Each step was 10 feet tall. Ji Tianxing stepped onto the boulder steps and climbed up 1 step at a time. Moments later, he reached the top of the holy altar. Beneath his feet was a flat ground with a radius of 100 feet. the dark golden holy altar was engraved with a mysterious and ancient pattern. He could vaguely make out that it was two divine dragons spiraling in the air. He did not think too much about it. He sat cross-legged on the ground and closed his eyes to rest, waiting for the divine light to descend. At that moment, the morning sun had just risen. It scattered its golden rays, illuminating the entire holy altar in a dazzling golden light. The holy altar exuded an invisible, mysterious power that enveloped his body. It silently increased his perception, talent, and potential. He was prepared to meditate on the holy altar for a day. Even if the divine light did not descend, he could still use the holy altar's power to cultivate. However, after an hour, his cultivation was interrupted. A figure in a white robe climbed to the top of the holy altar and appeared behind him. Seeing him sitting on the holy altar and cultivating, the white-robed figure was clearly stunned. He asked instinctively, "Young man, who are you? Why are you here?" Hearing this question, Ji Tianxing slowly stopped cultivating and opened his eyes. He turned his head to take a look. Only then did he see that the person was an old man in a white robe with white hair and beard. The old man was not tall. He was slightly plump. His face was not dignified either. He looked rather kind and benevolent. Moreover, there was no anger or malice in the old man's eyes when he looked at him. He was just puzzled. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing replied to the white-robed old man, "My surname is Tianxing. My name is Tianxing. Of course, I'm here to wait for the divine light to descend." Chapter 1547. The white-robed elder's reply made Ji Tianxing frown slightly. "You know me?" The white-robed elder shook his head and smiled. "Of course not. Today is the first time I've seen you. However, half a month ago, the head protector greeted me and mentioned your name and deeds." Ji Tianxing was puzzled and asked, "May I ask who you are?" The white-robed elder stroked his beard and said with an amiable expression, "My surname is Hong, and my name is Chun. I was appointed by the Divine Master to guard the Clear Sky Pagoda. Now that I'm old, I've stepped down from my post and will be spending my remaining years in Heaven's Saint Palace." Hong Qingtian's tone was calm and indifferent, and his expression was carefree. Just from his expression and appearance, one could see that he was open-minded and broad-minded. However, Ji Tianxing's expression changed when he heard these words, and a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. "Hong Qingtian? You're the previous head protector, the current third protector of Heaven's Saint Palace?" Hong Qingtian looked at him in surprise and smiled. "You brat, you actually know about my past? Did Lin Daoyi tell you?" Ji Tianxing shook his head and explained, "Divine Envoy Lin did not mention your deeds. I saw them in the books of the Divine Book Pavilion." Previously, when he had been in the Divine Book Pavilion, he had flipped through more than 300,000 books in order to quickly understand the situation of Shenwu continent. Coincidentally, there were dozens of books that mentioned Hong Qingtian. 1,000 years ago, Hong Qingtian had been a martial saint whose might had shaken the world. He had been highly regarded by Divine Master Taihao and had been appointed as the head protector of the Clear Sky Pagoda. However, several hundred years ago, Hong Qingtian had mysteriously disappeared for 10 years. When he had reappeared, he had returned to the Clear Sky Pagoda with serious injuries and had almost died. Although he had not lost his life and had luckily survived, his strength had not been restored. However, his strength was unable to recover, and his cultivation level was constantly falling. Since then, he had lived in seclusion on Godseal Mountain for decades, and there had been no trace of him. A few decades later, the third protector had broken through to the martial sage realm and was rewarded by the divine Lord Taihao. He was made the great protector of the Clear Sky Pagoda. As a result, Hong Qingtian and the three guardians' identities were swapped. The previous three protectors had become the current great protector, who was in charge of the entire God Bestowment Mountain. As for the great protector Hong Qingtian, he had become the current third protector, living in seclusion in the Heaven's Saint Palace. More than a month ago, Ji Tianxing had read these stories in the book and paid special attention to them, so they were still fresh in his mind. At this moment, Hong Qingtian was right in front of him. He carefully sized him up and saw some clues. On the surface, Hong Chengtian looked hale and hearty, and his complexion was rather good. But in reality his soul core was damaged, and his aura was obscure and weak. Obviously, he was heavily injured and had yet to recover. Even his strength had dropped from martial sage realm to cross-calamity realm. Ji Tianxing could faintly feel that Hong Chengtian's strength might be comparable to the second guardian's, which was between the 7th and 8th level of the tribulation transcending realm. At this moment, Hong Chengtian looked at him kindly and said with a smile, "You can be considered a legendary figure in God Bestowment Mountain. 2 months ago, you offended the Divine Master's dignity and incurred the Great Protector's punishment. You were sent to sweep the floor of the Divine Book Pavilion. Now, you have attracted the Oracle and become the Son of Oracle, which only appears once every 200 years. You are now living in the Heaven Saint Palace. This experience of twists and turns is really exciting." After saying that, Hong Chengtian stroked his beard, and a sincere smile bloomed on his old face. Ji Tianxing could see that Hong Chengtian was open-minded and kind. He had a whole new level of respect for him, so his words were filled with admiration. Thus, he stood up and cupped his hands towards Hong Chengtian and Tianxing. "Greetings to the third guardian." Hong Chengtian waved his hand and said with a smile, "You don't have to be so formal, and you don't have to call me third guardian. Just call me Elder Hong." As he said that, he actually took the initiative to sit down cross-legged beside Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing did not stand on ceremony and sat side by side with him. They looked at the sky and the morning sun, and chatted with interest. "Elder Hong, why did you come to the holy altar today? Are you also waiting for the divine light?" Hong Chengtian nodded and said with a faint smile, "Yes, for so many years, I have come here 4 times a year, and I will definitely be baptized by the divine light once." Ji Tianxing thought for a while and asked, "I heard that the divine light from the kingdom of God is most useful for warriors in the primordial soul realm and the tribulation realm. It has little effect on martial sages. You are baptized by the divine light every year. Could it be related to your injuries?" Hong Chengtian tilted his head and looked at him. He said with a playful smile, "You are really like what the rumors say. You are really free and unrestrained, and you do whatever you want. If it were other disciples or God's disciples, even if they knew, they would not dare to ask. You, on the other hand, are asking about this in front of me. Are you trying to expose my shortcomings?" Although he said that, there was no hint of blame in his expression and tone. Ji Tianxing also showed a faint smile, and said with a calm tone, "Some people are humble, polite, and elegant on the surface, but in their hearts, they are vicious, treacherous, and cunning. But I am different. Since I have nothing to ask for, there is no need for me to pretend. The reason why I am asking is because I am concerned about your injuries." Hong Chengtian looked at him and nodded sympathetically. You're so young, but you're quite experienced. You have a lot of insights. What you said is right. I have cultivated my body and mind in the Heaven Saint Palace for hundreds of years. Now, my state of mind is like water, and I have returned to my original state. Falling from the martial sage realm to the cross-calamity realm has allowed me to understand many things. You are very similar to me. Both of us are tired of deceit and scheming against each other. We would rather be straightforward with people than be hypocritical." As he spoke, he looked at the sky calmly with a faint smile on his face. The golden morning sun shone on his white robe and long hair, making him look like an otherworldly sage, an immortal in the clouds, with an ethereal temperament. He and Ji Tianxing felt like old friends when they met, and they hit it off. Thus, they started to chat. What happened back then is my biggest secret. Naturally, I cannot mention it to anyone. However, my injuries are too serious. My primordial spirit is injured and I am still unable to heal it. All these years, I have been baptized by the divine light every year to suppress my injuries and prevent them from worsening. In addition, I have been studying the way of elixir pills to find a way to heal my injuries. If not for the help of the divine light, my skills would have deteriorated rapidly. After hundreds of years, I am afraid that I am not much stronger than you." After Ji Tianxing heard this, he frowned and thought for a while. Then he asked, "Elder Hong, Can you tell me the situation of your primordial spirit injury and what are the symptoms? Chapter 1548. I know a little. Ji Tianxing smiled and said humbly. Hong Qingtian just smiled and did not comment. However, in his opinion, although Ji Tianxing was the son of God and a peerless genius, he was only an immortal soul cultivator. But Ji Tianxing only had essence soul realm strength after all. No matter how much he delved into the Tao of alchemy, how brilliant could he be? A martial artist's vision, knowledge, and methods were all limited by one's cultivation realm. A heaven-origin realm martial artist who spent his whole life studying the Tao of elixir could never surpass an immortal soul cultivator who knew a little about the Tao of elixir. You don't have to ask about my injuries. I've studied it for hundreds of years, but I can't save myself. Even if you know, what can you do? However, if you want to study the Tao of elixir, I can help you. If you encounter any problems in the future, come to me. I'll definitely answer them for you. Hong Qingtian looked at Ji Tianxing and said with a smile, although I've fallen to the tribulation realm, my Tao of elixir is second only to the famous elixir saints. It's not a problem for me to guide you. Ji Tianxing nodded and said, thank you, Elder Hong. If there's a chance in the future, I'll ask for your guidance. However, I still want to know about your injuries. Maybe we can brainstorm a way to treat it? Hong Qingtian looked at him with surprise and laughed involuntarily. You little brat, you're really stubborn. You don't want to give up. Well, since you're so concerned about me, I'll let you take a look. As he said that, he extended his left hand and placed it in front of Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing understood what he meant. He extended his right hand and placed it on Hong Qingtian's wrist, releasing his divine sense to check his condition. If he could see Elder Hong's injuries, Elder Hong would tell him the specific symptoms. If he could not even see the basic condition of his injuries, there was no need to continue the discussion. Ji Tianxing closed his eyes and focused on urging his divine sense into Hong Qingtian's body to check his primordial spirit. Hong Qingtian trusted him completely and did not put up any defenses, allowing him to check his primordial spirit. Both of them were silent. 100 breaths later, Ji Tianxing slowly withdrew his right hand and opened his eyes. What do you think? Hong Qingtian looked at him with a faint smile. He nodded slightly and said in a serious tone, the middle spirit is easy to damage. There are 5 disadvantages. If one of the 5 spirits is missing, the earth moves as if there is no movement, the 7 meridians are blocked and the 3 souls are blocked. The smile on Hong Qingtian's face immediately disappeared and became solemn. After Ji Tianxing finished speaking, a look of surprise appeared on his face, and his eyes flashed with gratification. You do have some ability. No wonder you're so stubborn. You've been confident for a long time. You're right. You've already seen through about 80% of the injuries on my soul. With your attainments in the Tao of alchemy, it's enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with ordinary tribulation passing experts. It's really not easy. Hong Qingtian's expression was filled with admiration, and he was not stingy with his praise. Elder Hong, you flatter me. Ji Tianxing said humbly, and said with a serious expression, although I've seen through 80% of the injuries, the remaining 20% is the most important. Please tell me. Hong Qingtian thought he believed him, and said, ever since my soul was damaged, every time I entered the extreme Yin realm, my 5 spirits would be in intense pain, as if they were about to break apart. Also, deep in my soul, there's a trace of a strange divine poison that's specially used to suppress the soul. After Hong Qingtian finished speaking, Ji Tianxing roughly understood what was going on. He remembered all of this in his heart, and said to Hong Qingtian, Elder Hong, I've read a few ancient medical books, and there are methods to treat similar injuries. If you're willing to believe me, why don't you give me a few days, and I'll be able to find a way to treat you. Hong Qingtian originally did not have much hope, and did not really believe that he could find a way. However, Ji Tianxing was the son of God, a genius favored by the divine master, and he did have some talent in the Tao of medicine. Hong Qingtian considered it for a moment, and then he smiled and nodded. Tianxing, I'm already very gratified and grateful that you're willing to do this. Just do what you can. No matter the result, I'll remember this favor. Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said, Elder Hong, you're exaggerating. I'm not doing this to make you owe me a favor. I'm only willing to do this because we hit it off. Hong Chengtian smiled and nodded, but he did not say anything else. Afterward, the two sat at the top of the sacred altar and began to chat. Hong Chengtian had been living in the west courtyard of Heaven's Saint Palace for over 100 years, and he had been lonely for far too long. To be able to meet such a peerless genius like Ji Tianxing, who shared similar interests, he and Ji Tianxing chatted happily. He talked about the past of Mount Godseal, the history of the Clear Sky Pagoda, the rise and fall of the 6 great empires, and the general situation of Shenwu continent. Hong Chengtian had once been a martial saint whose name had shaken the world, so he had naturally traveled the world. He had traveled all over Shenwu continent, and his knowledge was extensive. In the past, Ji Tianxing had only read about relevant records and stories in books. Now that he had heard Hong Chengtian's narration, he understood even more clearly. Unknowingly, an entire day passed. Even when the sun set and night fell, the divine light still did not descend upon the sacred altar. Ji Tianxing was somewhat disappointed. Hong Chengtian was already used to this, and he was not surprised. He even comforted Lu Yin, "Don't worry, the divine light might descend in another 3 months." When night fell, the two bid each other farewell and left the sacred altar. Ji Tianxing returned to the east courtyard and entered a secret room. He sat cross-legged on the purple jade platform and began to meditate. He urged his primordial spirit into Kenshin's tomb and landed in front of the 18 black tombstones. The first tombstone on the right was the entrance to the heavenly tome pavilion. He reached out and touched the tombstone, but he was immediately sucked into a separate space. In the next moment, he appeared in the vast sea of clouds, and beneath his feet was a white jade stone bridge. He crossed the stone bridge with ease and entered the heavenly tome pavilion, where he began to look through the books and ancient books. What he had said to Hong Chengtian earlier was not an excuse. He had indeed seen a similar situation recorded in an ancient book in the heavenly tome pavilion. Moreover, the ancient books in the heavenly tome pavilion were all rare treasures and cultivation techniques above the sage level. It could be said to be all-encompassing and all-encompassing. Hong Chengtian's primordial spirit was severely injured, and ordinary martial saints would not be able to treat it. However, he believed that he would definitely be able to find a corresponding treatment method in the heavenly tome pavilion. Time passed silently, and a day passed very quickly. In the heavenly tome pavilion, Ji Tianxing continuously looked through hundreds of sage-level medical books and alchemy books. Finally, when he finished reading half of the treatise on strange poisons, his furrowed brows suddenly relaxed, and a gratified smile appeared on his face. That's right. It's this medical book, and the symptoms described are exactly the same as Elder Hong's. With a face full of joy, he held the treatise on strange poisons and left the heavenly tome pavilion. Chapter 1549. According to the records in the Book of Strange Poisons, the strange poison in Hong Chengtian's primordial spirit was an extremely rare evil poison. That evil poison did not belong to the 3 races of humans, demons and demons. Instead, it came from a mysterious underground abyss. Because of this, Hong Chengtian had studied it for hundreds of years but was still unable to cure it. Even if the Great Guardian was a martial saint, he could not heal him. After Ji Tianxing finished reading the medical book, he found that the treatment method recorded in the book was somewhat complicated. If he wanted to heal Hong Chengtian's injuries, not only did he have to take a heavenly crystal jade divine pill, he also had to use the earth core fire crystal and the outer Xian Bing in a place with abundant 5-element spiritual qi to heal for 3 years. Ji Tianxing put the medical book back and thought to himself, the earth core fire crystal and the outer Xian Bing are both extremely precious materials. However, the Clear Sky Pagoda controls the 6 nations and has endless resources and treasures. It should not be difficult to gather these 2 treasures. The most important thing is still the heavenly crystal jade divine pill, which requires 19 precious materials and a saint-grade pill furnace to refine. This is somewhat troublesome. He did not have the 19 precious materials nor a saint-grade pill furnace. If he wanted to refine the heavenly crystal jade divine pill, he could only go to Hong Qingtian. The next morning, he left the east courtyard and rushed to the west courtyard where Hong Qingtian lived. The west courtyard's architectural style and area were similar to the east courtyard. The difference was that Hong Qingtian lived alone in the west courtyard. There were only 2 guards guarding the door and 2 maids serving him. It was not like Ji Tianxing's east courtyard, which had more than 100 guards and maids. After Ji Tianxing explained the purpose of his visit to the Imperial Guard, the Imperial Guard led him into the western courtyard and arrived at a quiet courtyard. At this moment, the sun had risen and the golden sunlight shone on the house. Hong Qingtian, dressed in a white robe, was sitting on the roof of the palace, facing the morning sun and meditating quietly. His body seemed to have merged with the heavens and the earth. As he breathed, he swallowed the morning sun and stirred the clouds in the sky. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing could not help but reveal a smile, feeling admiration in his heart. With Elder Hong's cultivation and methods, he's really like the gods in the legends. He's able to feast on the sun and moon. He didn't say anything to disturb them. He stood quietly in the courtyard and waited. An hour later, Hong Qingtian finally finished his cultivation. He flew down from the roof and landed in the courtyard. "Tianxing, why are you looking for this old man so early in the morning?" Hong Qingtian put his left hand behind his back and stroked his beard with his right hand. He looked at Ji Tianxing with a smile. Ji Tianxing smiled and nodded. After greeting him, he went straight to the point and said, "Elder Hong, I have found a way to heal you, but I need your help." "What?" Hong Qingtian was shocked and said in disbelief, "It's only been one night, and you already have a way to treat my injuries?" "Tianxing, if this old man didn't have some understanding of you, I would really suspect that you're making fun of this old man." Ji Tianxing knew that he was shocked and in disbelief. He didn't say anything more. He took out a piece of paper and handed it to Hong Qingtian. "I need a saint-grade pill furnace to refine a celestial jade divine pill. These are the 19 materials needed to refine the pill. Elder Hong, please prepare them. In addition, Elder Hong also needs to prepare 9 pieces of earth core fire crystals and 12 pieces of outer space mysterious ice for your healing." Hong Qingtian saw that he had a serious expression and spoke as if he were serious. He was even more shocked. He quickly took the paper and read it carefully. After he finished reading the 19 materials, his expression became even more serious. After frowning and weighing the pros and cons, he looked at Ji Tianxing with a burning gaze and said, "Tianxing, this old man knows that you have good intentions. I also know that you're a peerless genius who has created many miracles. But this time, this old man really needs to consider carefully. Of course, it's not that I don't trust you. It's just that these 19 materials, as well as the earth core fire crystals and the outer space Shenbing, are all top treasures of heaven and earth. They're priceless. Not to mention an ordinary martial saint, even an empire wouldn't be able to gather these materials in a short period of time." Ji Tianxing nodded to show that he understood. "I understand. These materials are all top treasures of heaven and earth. But with God's sealing mountain's power and foundation, it shouldn't be difficult to gather them." Hong Qingtian nodded and said, "That's right. Most of the materials are available in the Clear Sky Pagoda. The missing materials can also be gathered quickly. But this old man is spending so much of God's sealing mountain's wealth in order to heal my injuries. If I succeed, it'll be fine. But if I fail, this old man won't have the face to face the guardians, let alone the divine master." Ji Tianxing shook his head and comforted him with a smile. "Elder Hong, you worry too much. You were once the great guardian of the Clear Sky Pagoda and made great contributions to the divine master. Even if you take these treasures, it's only right. No one will be dissatisfied with you. In addition, I have an 80% chance of success. Please rest assured, Elder Hong." 80% chance? Hong Qingtian's eyes widened, revealing a look of great surprise. Ji Tianxing was startled for a moment and smiled embarrassedly. "After all, I don't dare to make any guarantees. I can only try my best. If I can break through to the tribulation stage, I'll have 100% chance. Hong Chengtian was even more shocked. His old face was flushed, and he said excitedly, "No, you misunderstood. What I mean is that an 80% chance is already incredible. You brat." This old man still doesn't dare to believe it. Are you lying to this old man, or are you this old man's lucky star? He was injured and lived in seclusion for hundreds of years. His strength was constantly declining. He tried everything to save himself, but he was powerless in the end. Now, Ji Tianxing brought him a glimmer of hope and dawn. Even if his state of mind was as calm as still water, he lost his composure at this moment. He couldn't believe it and felt like he was dreaming. Ji Tianxing understood his feelings and didn't say much. He only asked, "If there's no problem, then I'll take my leave first. Let me know when you've gathered the materials." After saying that, he said goodbye to Hong Chengtian and turned to leave the west courtyard. Hong Chengtian held the note in his hand and looked at his back as he left. His eyes were still shining with excitement. After a long time, he retracted his gaze and put away the note solemnly. Is it a blessing or a curse? Even the divine master favors him. This old man will believe him this time and take a gamble. He murmured in a firm tone and hurriedly went to prepare the materials for alchemy. 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. Ji Tianxing cultivated in the east courtyard for 5 days. On the morning of the 6th day, when he was cultivating in the secret chamber, a guard reported that the 3 guardians had come to look for him. Therefore, he ended his cultivation and walked out of the secret chamber and rushed to the study. Hong Chengtian was sitting in the study with a hint of exhaustion between his eyebrows. Obviously, he had put in a lot of effort to gather the materials for alchemy in the past few days. Seeing Ji Tianxing enter the study, Hong Chengtian greeted him and gave him a space ring. "Tianxing, I've already prepared the 19 materials to refine the celestial jade divine pill." Chapter 1550. Ji Tianxing was very clear on how precious those materials were. He originally thought that Hong Chengtian would need at least 10 days to half a month to barely gather them. He did not expect that in just a few days, Hong Chengtian had already gathered all the materials. He took the spatial ring and said to Hong Chengtian, "Elder Hong, to heal your primordial spirit, we mainly rely on the celestial jade divine pill. As for the earth core fire crystal and outer space Shen Bing, they are only there to assist in the treatment. We are not in a hurry." Hong Chengtian nodded to show that he understood. "Then this old man can rest assured." Ji Tianxing said again, "I have enough materials. I wonder if I can borrow Elder Hong's alchemy room?" Hong Chengtian was stunned for a moment and said awkwardly, "There is indeed an alchemy room in this old man's west courtyard. It's just that the cauldrons are all tribulation grade and not saint grade." Ji Tianxing frowned slightly and said regretfully, "I'm afraid that won't do. We need a saint-grade cauldron to successfully refine the celestial jade divine pill." Hong Chengtian thought for a moment and said, "There is an unused burning sky palace on the cliff in the north. It was once the largest alchemy room on the mountain peak, and there was a saint-grade cauldron in it. However, 100 years ago, there was a problem with that saint-grade cauldron. I don't know what it is missing, but it has been unused until now." Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said with a smile, "It's fine as long as there is a saint-grade cauldron. I'll go take a look later." Hong Chengtian was a little worried and said, "Tianxing, this old man checked that burning sky cauldron before, but I couldn't find out what the problem was and couldn't activate it. If you want to use that cauldron, you can go find the Great Guardian and let him check it for you. Maybe he can activate it successfully." Ji Tianxing nodded and did not say anything else. The two chatted for a while more before Hong Chengtian took his leave. Ji Tianxing did not waste any time and left the Heaven Saint Palace, heading straight for the Burning Sky Palace in the north. 15 minutes later, he passed through a dozen magnificent palaces and arrived outside the Burning Sky Palace. This was an ancient palace that stood at the edge of a cliff. It was dark red in color, and the roof was covered with fiery red glazed tiles. However, the square outside the palace was covered in dust, and the palace gates were tightly shut. Ji Tianxing looked around and saw no one inside or outside the palace. There were no maids or guards. He walked up the steps to the entrance of the palace. The The 30-meter-tall palace gate was engraved with complicated patterns, forming a powerful defensive formation. The 4 huge bronze doorknobs were faintly mottled with rust. It was obvious that they had not been touched for many years. Tianxing took out the deity token that the Great Guardian had given him and put it into the groove of the door knocker. Immediately, the array formation of the palace gate was activated, and a dazzling 5-colored light shone. Along with a muffled creaking sound, the palace gate slowly opened to both sides. Tianxing stepped through the door and entered the main hall of the Burning Sky Palace. When he stepped into the main hall, the originally dim palace was immediately lit up with dazzling lights. The surrounding walls were lit up with gemstone lamps, and the dome was inlaid with thousands of pearls and gems, which were also shining brightly. Tianxing stood in the main hall and looked around calmly. He saw that the spacious main hall was at least 100 feet wide, supported by 6 red pillars with gold. Ancient statues were placed in the corners, and a 30-meter-tall bronze cauldron stood in the middle of the main hall. The bronze cauldron's shape was ancient and strange. The body of the cauldron was hexagonal, with 6 ears and 6 legs. The body of the cauldron was carved with flying fire phoenixes. The strange thing was that the 6 legs of the cauldron were embedded in the ground, as if they were connected to the underground. The ground around the cauldron was not made of ordinary bricks, but of supreme-grade spiritual jade, which exuded a rich spiritual energy. Looks like this is the Burning Sky Cauldron. Tianxing walked around the cauldron. After looking at it for a while, he left the main hall. He entered the side halls on both sides of the main hall and checked the study room, the alchemy room, the fire room, the storage room, and so on. After an hour, he had a clear understanding of the layout of the Burning Sky Palace. The entire Burning Sky Palace is built on the edge of a cliff, and behind it is a bottomless abyss. This Burning Sky Palace is a saint-level array, and the core is the Burning Sky Cauldron. Not only does the Burning Sky Cauldron need to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy, but it also needs to absorb the earth core spiritual fire under the God-sealing mountain through the array. Tianxing prepared for a moment, then waved his hand and released 2 streaks of dark golden spiritual energy into the Burning Sky Cauldron, trying to activate it. However, the spiritual energy he released was like a clay ox entering the sea, and there was no reaction. Previously, Hong Chengtian had said that there was a problem with the Burning Sky Cauldron, and it had been out of use for more than 100 years. He continued to use different methods to inject spiritual energy into the Burning Sky Cauldron, trying to activate the array of the cauldron. However, he tried more than 10 times, and all of them ended in failure. The facts have proven that Hong Chengtian was right. There is indeed a problem with the Burning Sky Cauldron, and it is missing something at its core. However, where is the problem? Tianxing calmed down and frowned as he observed the Burning Sky Cauldron, thinking silently. A moment later, he flew above the cauldron and released his divine sense to envelop the entire Burning Sky Cauldron, carefully analyzing it bit by bit. Time passed quietly. On the God-sealing mountain, the sun rose and the moon set. Day after day passed. The main hall of the Burning Sky Palace had always been quiet, and it was illuminated by the gemstone lamps, making it impossible to distinguish between day and night. Tianxing forgot about the passage of time, and focused on inspecting the Burning Sky Cauldron to find the problem. 3 days later, he found the crux of the problem, but he did not know what it was. Therefore, he meditated on the spot, and his primordial spirit entered the Heavenly Book Pavilion to read the books about saint-level cauldrons. Within 2 days, he quickly read more than 10,000 ancient books and books. He already knew saint-level cauldrons and cauldrons like the back of his hand, and he had a thorough understanding of them. He compared the descriptions in dozens of ancient books, and after analyzing for a long time, he finally understood the problem with the Burning Sky Cauldron and found a solution. He then entered the underground of the palace, found the earth fire array, and cast a spell to repair the array. But this was only the first step to repairing the Burning Sky Cauldron. 2 days later, he sneaked into the underground of the God-sealing mountain and entered the geocentric rock formation hundreds of miles deep. The rock formation was filled with earth fire and magma, and it was extremely hot, and the terrain was also extremely complicated. He endured the pain of being roasted, gritted his teeth, and persevered. After 2 days, he finally repaired 6 array nodes. The array that supported the operation of the burning sky cauldron was finally repaired. There was only one last step. As long as he repaired the internal array of the burning sky cauldron, he could smoothly activate it. Ji Tianxing returned to the burning sky palace, entered the burning sky cauldron, and cast a spell to repair the array. Another day passed. On the evening of the 10th day, he finally repaired the array in the burning sky cauldron. At this point, the saint-level cauldron had finally returned to normal and could operate smoothly. Ji Tianxing had been busy for 10 days, and his primordial spirit was also quite tired. Chapter 1551. Early in the morning, the sun rose from the east. Warm sunlight shone on the peak of God-Sealing Mountain. Dozens of palaces were covered in golden light, appearing sacred and peaceful. In the west courtyard of Heaven Saint Palace, Hong Chengtian flew to the roof and meditated as usual. He sat on the roof and faced the rising sun in the east, circulating his energy with his eyes closed. As he breathed, the clouds in the sky surged as he absorbed and refined the essence of the sun and moon. Early in the morning was the time when yin and yang intersected. The essence of the moon at night had yet to dissipate, but the essence of the sun in the day had already descended. This was the most suitable time for cultivation. Hong Chengtian meditated for an hour and refined the flowing clouds and morning glow in the sky. The peak of Mount God Bestowment became cloudless and clear. Vast and mighty essence of the sun and moon flowed in his body, nourishing the injuries of his primordial spirit. He slowly stopped and opened his eyes. However, when he saw the scene in the sky, he was stunned. The originally clear and bright sky was filled with the red glow of the sun for some reason. Why is there such a strange phenomenon? Is this some kind of omen? Hong Chengtian instantly frowned, and a look of worry flashed across his eyes. He looked up at the sky and stared at the direction of the red glow. He used the secret technique of Heaven's Secrets to analyze the great way of Heaven's Secrets. If the red glow was really some kind of omen, he had to deduce in advance whether the omen was auspicious or ominous. However, after he used the secret technique of Heaven's Secrets, he could not deduce the result at all. He could not tell whether the omen was auspicious or ominous. This made him even more confused, and he became even more shocked and worried. What kind of omen is this? Why is it so mysterious? Even the secret technique of Heaven Expansion cannot deduce any clues? If it's an auspicious omen, it will definitely benefit millions of people. If it's an ominous omen, it will probably be a calamity that will destroy the world. At this thought, Hong Chengtian immediately flew down from the roof and walked out of the courtyard. He wanted to discuss this matter with the Great Guardian. However, just as he walked out of the courtyard, he saw more than 10 guards and maidservants in the garden. They were all looking at the sky and whispering to each other. Those guards and maidservants were all looking at the sky in the north, and their faces were filled with shock and astonishment. Heavens, what's with that soaring fire? Looking at the location of the fire, it seems to be at the northern edge. It seems to be the location of the burning sky palace. I remember that many years ago, when the 3 protectors were refining pills in the burning heaven palace, this kind of heavenly flame also appeared. I heard that the burning sky palace has been closed for over 100 years. It seems that there is something wrong with the pill cauldron and it can't be activated. Why is it activated again now? Hong Chengtian was powerful, and his ears and eyes were sharp. Naturally, he heard the discussions of the guards. His body suddenly stiffened, and his feet froze on the spot. He slowly turned his head to look at the northern sky. When he saw clearly that the red clouds that filled the sky were indeed coming from the burning heaven palace, he immediately understood. I didn't expect it to be the activation of the burning heaven palace's array formation that caused the soaring flames to form clouds. This old man actually mistakenly thought that it was some sort of heaven and earth anomaly. I'm truly ashamed. A self-deprecating smile appeared on his face, and he felt a little embarrassed. However, he immediately reacted, and the smile on his face immediately turned into deep shock. The Burning Sky Palace has been idle for over 100 years, and the Burning Sky Cauldron can't be activated. How can it cause the soaring red clouds? Could it be that Ji Tianxing activated the Burning Sky Cauldron? This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. I personally checked the Burning Sky Cauldron. The array formation and the core of the pill cauldron are missing, and it can't be activated successfully. Thinking of this, Hong Qingtian's emotions were somewhat agitated, and his eyes sparkled. With Ji Tianxing's strength, it is impossible for him to repair the Burning Sky Cauldron. He must have asked the Great Protector for help. Only the Great Protector, who has the strength of a martial sage, can activate the Burning Sky Cauldron. No wonder Ji Tianxing did not appear for 10 consecutive days. It turns out that he really went to the Burning Sky Palace and is really going to start refining pills. This old man has to go and see what is going on. Hong Qingtian's heart was filled with shock and anticipation. He could not wait to leave the west courtyard and rush to the Burning Sky Palace in the north. At the same time, the entire God Bestowment Mountain was alarmed. Early in the morning, the young geniuses of the 6 nations saw the red clouds that covered the sky and illuminated the ground in a fiery red color. A few divine envoys, countless golden armored guards, and maidservants also saw the red clouds covering the sky. Countless people in the various palaces, plazas, gardens, and corridors were discussing this matter. Everyone looked at the sky in the north and saw the magnificent scene brought about by the red clouds as they discussed the reason for the appearance of the red clouds. Why would there be such a red cloud so early in the morning? Why is it so dazzling? The red clouds are at least tens of thousands of miles wide, right? It also contains a scorching fire aura. It seems to be the heavenly fire. Looking at the origin of the red clouds, it seems to be the Burning Sky Palace in the north. That's strange. Hasn't the Burning Sky Palace been idle for 100 years? I heard that the Burning Sky Palace is a sacred place for refining pills. However, 100 years ago, the pill cauldron was broken and it was never opened again. Could it be that someone repaired the Burning Sky Cauldron and reactivated it? It is said that the Burning Sky Cauldron is a sage-grade pill cauldron. Only martial sages can repair and use it. The Great Protector must have done it personally. The Great Protector has personally refined pills in the Burning Sky Palace? It must be a shocking sage pill. Let's go and take a look. It is our fortune to be able to see the Great Protector refine a sage pill. It will definitely benefit us for the rest of our lives. Similar conversations took place in the various palaces in God Bestowment Mountain. The young geniuses of the 6 nations, as well as some guards and maids who did not need to be on duty, rushed to the Burning Sky Palace. Even the divine envoys and Hong Qingtian were on their way to the Burning Sky Palace. After all, the Burning Sky Palace was a sacred place for refining pills. However, it was not a forbidden place. The disciples, guards, and maids were not prohibited from getting close to it. 100 years ago, when the Burning Sky Palace was still operating normally, the Great Protector would occasionally open the cauldron to refine pills. Whenever he refined pills, it was a grand event on God Bestowment Mountain that attracted many people to watch and learn from him. However, the materials needed to refine a sage pill were priceless and could not be easily gathered. The Great Protector would only refine pills once every 20 years. Ever since the Burning Sky Cauldron had a problem, he had not refined any more sage pills. Now, after 100 years, the Great Protector had finally opened the cauldron to refine pills again. Everyone was excited and filled with anticipation as they rushed to the Burning Sky Palace and gathered outside the palace gate. Even if they could not see the Great Protector's refining skills at a close distance, they would benefit greatly if they could absorb some of the sage pill spiritual qi outside the palace. In just half an hour, more than 100 people had gathered at the square outside the Burning Sky Palace. Chapter 1552. Many geniuses, guards, and maidservants gathered in groups of 3 to 5 on the square, whispering to each other as they discussed. Suddenly, someone saw Hong Chengtian hurriedly walking through the crowd toward the gate of the Burning Sky Palace. Some of the guards and maids who recognized him immediately let out a burst of exclamations and discussions. Isn't that the third guardian? Even he has been alerted? It really is the third guardian. Strange, the third guardian has already lived in seclusion in the Heaven Saint Palace for hundreds of years and rarely shows himself. Why is he here today? The third guardian? Is he the former martial saint expert, the previous great guardian? Yes, the former great guardian. Now he is the third guardian and has been guarding the Heaven Saint Palace. The third guardian has always been amiable and does not put on airs. Everyone calls him Elder Hong. Elder Hong has cultivated for many years and his heart is as calm as still water. Why would he come to watch the show? Following the discussion, many guards, maidservants, and young geniuses respectfully greeted Hong Chengtian. Hong Chengtian quickly walked through the crowd and responded to their polite greetings with a smile and a nod. Under everyone's gazes, he walked to the gate of the Burning Sky Palace and stood there, saying loudly, "Great Guardian, Hong Chengtian requests an audience." The 100 or so people in the square had previously only guessed that the person refining pills in the Burning Sky Palace was the Great Guardian. Now that they heard Hong Chengtian's words, they were even more certain that the person refining pills was the Great Guardian. Everyone stared at the gate of the palace, waiting for the Great Guardian to appear. However, a dignified and loud voice sounded from the edge of the square. "Elder Hong, why are you looking for me?" Suddenly hearing this dignified voice, everyone turned their heads to look behind them. They saw a tall and sturdy old man in golden robes at the edge of the square striding over. This person's hair and beard were all white, and his skin was bronze. His eyes were bright and deep, and his entire body emitted a domineering aura. There was no one present who did not recognize him. It was undoubtedly the Great Guardian. When Hong Chengtian saw the Great Guardian walking over, he was stunned on the spot. His eyes were full of shock. The young geniuses of the 6 states, the guards, and the maids all revealed puzzled expressions. Everyone thought that the Great Protector was refining pills in the Burning Heaven Palace, so they came to watch, hoping to get some of the Saint Pill's spirit chi. But now, Chief Protector was in the plaza and not in Burning Heaven Palace at all. Hong Chengtian came back to his senses and asked somewhat excitedly, "Chief Protector, why aren't you in the Burning Sky Palace? Aren't you the one refining pills in the palace?" The Great Guardian walked towards him and shook his head. "Concoct pills? Wasn't the Burning Sky Cauldron in the Burning Sky Palace already broken and unused for 100 years? I was also alarmed by the sky shrouding red clouds. That's why I rushed over to investigate." How is this possible? Could it really be him? Hong Chengtian was even more shocked. He felt that it was inconceivable, and his eyes shone brightly. The Great Guardian walked in front of him and asked doubtfully, "Elder Hong, what's going on? Aren't you cultivating in the Heaven Saint Palace? Why are you here to watch the show?" Hong Chengtian's eyes shone brightly as he looked at the Great Guardian and asked solemnly, "Chief Protector, tell this old man the truth. Did Ji Tianxing ask you for help before?" "Ji Tianxing? Why did he ask me for help?" The Great Guardian was even more confused and didn't understand. Hong Chengtian finally confirmed the guess in his heart. He exclaimed in shock, "So it's really him." He actually repaired the broken Burning Sky Cauldron and successfully opened the Saint Cauldron. The Great Guardian was confused and hurriedly asked, "Elder Hong, what's going on? Don't keep me in suspense." Hong Chengtian took a few deep breaths and calmed his agitated and shocked heart. He explained solemnly, "It's like this. After Ji Tianxing entered the Heaven Saint Palace, he met this old man on the Saint Altar. We chatted happily and felt like old friends at first sight. That kid saw that this old man was injured and offered to treat this old man's injuries." The Great Guardian was shocked and asked in disbelief, "Is this true? Even I can't do anything about your injuries. Ji Tianxing is only at the primordial soul realm. How could he help you?" Hong Chengtian looked at the palace door with a burning gaze and said emotionally, "At first, this old man didn't believe it either. However, Ji Tianxing spoke with certainty and analyzed the situation thoroughly. Furthermore, he is well versed in both ancient and modern times and has read a lot of books. He has talent in the way of medicine and actually found a treatment method. This old man helped him gather the ingredients for refining pills and told him that the Burning Sky Cauldron is a saint-level pill cauldron and can help him refine pills. Hearing this, the great guardian understood everything. He was so shocked that his expression changed drastically. His eyes shone brightly as he exclaimed, "So, Ji Tianxing repaired the Burning Sky Cauldron and successfully opened the Saint Cauldron to refine pills?" Hong Cheng'an revealed a gratified and excited smile and nodded. "From the looks of it, that's the case." The various geniuses in the square, as well as the many guards and maidservants, finally understood the reason behind this matter. Instantly, everyone was shocked to the extreme, and their expressions became very interesting. After being stunned for a long time, the crowd erupted into enthusiastic exclamations and discussions. "Oh my God! I thought it was the great guardian refining pills. I didn't expect it to be Ji Tianxing. This is unbelievable. Ji Tianxing can actually repair a damaged Saint Cauldron? Isn't this too heaven-defying? I also have the strength of the primordial soul realm. However, I can't even open a Saint Cauldron in perfect condition, let alone repair it. Although Ji Tianxing is the son of God, he is too reckless. With his strength, he dares to touch the Saint Cauldron? Who will be responsible if an accident happens?" Most people were shocked by Ji Tianxing's feat. Their hearts were in turmoil and they found it hard to believe. However, there were a small number of people who felt that Ji Tianxing was purely trying to be in the limelight and had deliberately caused such a big commotion. In the end, he would definitely fail. Ji Tianxing was only at the primordial soul realm. If he could repair the Saint Cauldron and control it to refine a sacred pill, then the entire Shenwu continent would be filled with medical and alchemy sages. The great guardian frowned and pondered for a long time before revealing a serious expression. He shook his head repeatedly and said, "Although this matter is shocking, this is too ridiculous. The Burning Sky Cauldron is a sacred item that is related to the spirit veins of the entire Mount God Seal. Although Ji Tianxing is the son of God, he is only at the primordial soul realm. How can he control the Saint Cauldron and refine a sacred pill? This is simply fooling around. What if it leads to a disaster?" Hong Chengtian nodded with a complicated expression and explained, "I reminded Tianxing that he could ask you to help him repair the Saint Cauldron, but I didn't expect him to repair it himself without asking you. I'm also worried about him. If something goes wrong and he gets hurt, I won't be at ease." Chapter 1553. The Great Guardian and Hong Chengtian were both filled with worry and anxiety. However, the Great Guardian was worried that Ji Tianxing would rashly control the Burning Sky Cauldron and destroy the spirit vein of Mount God Bestowment, causing a great change and disaster. On the other hand, Hong Chengtian was worried about Ji Tianxing's safety. He was afraid that Ji Tianxing would be injured by the Burning Sky Cauldron. After all, Ji Tianxing had entered the Burning Sky Palace out of kindness to help him treat his injuries. If Ji Tianxing was harmed in any way, he would feel guilty. Hearing Hong Chengtian's words, the Great Guardian thought to himself, "What kind of charm does Ji Tianxing have?" He actually became friends with Elder Hong despite their age difference and made Elder Hong so concerned about him? He did not waste any time and hurriedly waved his hand to form a seal and pressed it on the palace door. Suddenly, the palace door lit up with a five-colored brilliance and slowly opened to both sides. The moment the palace door opened, a majestic heavenly wind, earthly fire, and the five elements spirit chi gushed out from the main hall and poured onto the square like a flood. Before the geniuses, guards, and maidservants in the square could react, they were enveloped by the surging spirit chi of heaven and earth. The impact made them dizzy. Of course, no one was injured. Instead, they absorbed the majestic spirit chi of heaven and earth and benefited greatly. Hong Chengtian's expression changed. He hurriedly stepped into the main hall and looked into the hall with a worried gaze. The Great Guardian was also worried that something would happen to the sacred cauldron, so he followed closely into the main hall. When the two of them saw the scene in the middle of the main hall, they were stunned on the spot. Their faces were full of shock. They saw that the ground within a radius of 1,000 feet was lit up with a 5-colored spirit chi brilliance. The extremely dense spirit chi formed thousands of intersecting veins on the ground, connecting to the burning sky cauldron in the middle. The originally simple and unadorned bronze cauldron was now emitting a 5-colored brilliance. It was extremely dazzling. A crimson pillar of fire was rising from the mouth of the cauldron, constantly emitting terrifying heat waves. Ji Tianxing, who was dressed in a white robe, was sitting cross-legged under the burning sky cauldron. His back was facing the palace door and his face was facing the cauldron. He was concentrating on channeling his arts to control the heaven and earth saint array and activate the power of the burning sky cauldron. The great guardian was a martial saint expert. Hong Qingtan had once been a martial saint as well as an alchemy grandmaster. With their insight and knowledge, they could naturally tell that there was nothing wrong with the burning sky cauldron. It was operating normally. Ji Tianxing was carrying out the first step of alchemy, which was to preheat the cauldron and prepare to throw in the alchemy materials. He actually repaired the burning sky cauldron. Oh my God! He is really going to start refining the holy elixir. The great guardian and Hong Qingtian looked at each other and exclaimed in disbelief. Both of them were martial sages. They were as steady as a rock and did not show their emotions on their faces. Even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of them, their expressions would not change. However, at this moment, both of their minds were in a mess. They were shocked by Ji Tianxing. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would never have believed that an Essence Soul Realm warrior could accomplish such a miracle. The two of them regained their senses and continued to discuss excitedly. Back then, we personally checked the burning sky cauldron and could not find the root of the problem. We were unable to repair it. How did this kid do it? Yes, I always thought that only the Divine Master could solve the problem of the burning sky cauldron. I did not expect Ji Tianxing to create such a miracle. No wonder he was able to gain the Divine Master's favor and become the son of Oracle not long after he entered God-Sealing Mountain. I like him more and more now. Ji Tianxing has made a great contribution again. He has successfully repaired the burning sky cauldron. I have to carefully consider how to reward him. Just as the great guardian and Hong Qingtian were discussing in low voices, Ji Tianxing, who was focused on channeling his arts, suddenly spoke. Please go out and talk. Do not disturb me while I am refining the holy elixir. His tone was low and calm. It even contained a trace of unquestionable authority. If it were anyone else who dared to say such a thing, the great guardian would definitely be furious and severely punish them. However, this sentence was said by Ji Tianxing, so the great guardian was not angry. He said with a gratified expression, Tianxing, don't worry about refining the elixir. If you need anything, just tell me. I will definitely help you. Hong Qingtian also stroked his beard and said with a smile, Tianxing, don't force yourself and don't hurt yourself. Regardless of whether you succeed or not, I am already very happy that you have created such a miracle. Ji Tianxing still had his back facing them. As he activated the array, he said, Thank you for your concern. Please wait outside the hall. Don't let anyone disturb me. The holy elixir will be refined in 7 days at most. We will talk again then. Hong Qingtian was shocked. His eyes widened in disbelief as he exclaimed, What? 7 days? You only used 7 days to refine a holy elixir? How is this possible? The great guardian was so shocked that his eyes widened. He felt as if he was listening to a heavenly book. Back then, Elder Hong personally performed the array. Even if he refined a lower-grade holy elixir, it would take him 2 months. Refining a holy elixir in 7 days? Are you kidding me? The great guardian did not explain. In the past, when he refined a holy elixir, it would usually take him 5 months or even half a year. For an alchemy grandmaster like Hong Qingtian to refine a holy elixir in 2 months was already very admirable. As for refining a holy elixir in 7 days, he could not believe it. He had never heard of it. He even doubted whether a holy elixir refined in 7 days could be eaten. Ji Tianxing still had his eyes closed. He focused on performing the array and did not say another word. The great guardian was filled with worry and doubt, but it was not appropriate for him to ask. On the other hand, Hong Chengtian was more relaxed. He was smiling and he was very happy and excited. He patted the great guardian's shoulder and said telepathically, "Tianxing is the son of God. We have to believe in him and give him a chance to prove himself. Don't ask any more questions. Let's not disturb him. Let's go out first." Therefore, Hong Chengtian turned around and stepped through the palace door. He was the first to leave the main hall. The great guardian hesitated for a moment before leaving with him. When the two of them returned to the eaves, the palace door closed automatically. The many geniuses, guards, maids, and God's envoys in the square had already burst into an uproar. They were all exclaiming in amazement. When the palace door opened, everyone looked into the main hall and vaguely saw the situation in the hall. Everyone saw that there was a mysterious array operating on the ground of the main hall. The huge bronze cauldron was surrounded by flames and emitted a powerful spirit qi. Under the burning sky cauldron, a young man in a white robe was sitting upright. Looking at the back, there was no doubt that it was Ji Tianxing. The truth was that Ji Tianxing had repaired the burning sky cauldron and used it to refine the elixir. This explosive news shocked everyone. They were all dumbfounded and could not believe it. What the great guardian said next made everyone so excited and jealous that they almost went crazy. The son of God, Ji Tianxing, has successfully repaired the burning sky cauldron that has been idle for 100 years. He is refining the holy elixir in the burning sky palace. For the next 7 days, the burning sky palace will be under martial law. No one is allowed to enter the main hall. Chapter 1554. The great guardian's tone was very dignified. This order was enough to prove that he valued and trusted Ji Tianxing. The young geniuses of various countries were envious of this, and their eyes were red with jealousy. In the crowd, Song Zhanyu stared at the gate of the palace with an ugly expression. His eyes were filled with worry. In just 3 months, the candidates of the god's disciple have not made much progress in their strength. Ji Tianxing, on the other hand, has made a name for himself in the investiture god mountain. He is highly regarded by the great guardian and the third guardian. Damn it! He has already moved into the heavily guarded Heaven Saint Palace. It will be difficult for me to find a chance to snatch his burial of Heaven Sword. It had only been a month since he had received the secret order from the Holy Emperor of White Knight. However, in this month, Ji Tianxing had suddenly become the child of God and received everyone's attention. He was also highly regarded by the great guardian. He did not even have the time to plot and plan. He had not even seen the burial of Heaven Sword. How could he not be extremely worried and anxious? Among the crowd of the Thousand Snow Empire, Jiang Ningxue stood alone. She stared at the gate of the palace, and there was a touch of melancholy on her beautiful face. Her eyes were a little complicated. She did not expect that in just a month, Ji Tianxing would become the child of God and even repair the holy cauldron, winning the favor of the great guardian and the third guardian. Although Ji Tianxing was only the 4th genius in name, his dazzling light had surpassed all the other geniuses. She recalled the disdain and resistance she had for Ji Tianxing when she deliberately approached Ji Tianxing. She did not know why, but she suddenly felt a little regretful. She could not help but laugh at herself. When Lu Li forced me to get close to him, I still resisted. When Ji Tianxing expressed his goodwill to me, I still looked down on him. Now that he has become the child of God, I wonder if he still has feelings for me? At the edge of the square, there was a 100-foot-tall palace. On the roof of the palace stood a carefree and unruly figure. This was a young man who didn't fit in with the crowd. He wore a set of gray linen clothes and a pair of black cloth shoes. His long hair was tied into a ponytail with a hemp rope. He stood on the roof against the wind and leaned against the cornice of the palace, holding a green wine gourd in his hand. There was no doubt that he was Qin Zangqiong, the #1 genius among the candidates for the god's disciple. Qin Zangqiong's sharp eyes stared at the gate of the burning sky palace on the other side of the square. From time to time, he would raise his head to take a sip of the strong liquor. His whole body exuded an increasingly strong fighting spirit. Originally, I thought that this batch of God's disciples were all trash and that no one would be able to compete with me. Now it seems that only he is worthy to be my opponent. He lifted his sleeve to wipe away the wine stain at the corner of his mouth as he muttered to himself. Seeing that the great guardian had left the square after giving the order, he also turned and flew down from the roof, returning to the Azure Dragon Palace. In the next few days, the peak of the God's Mountain was bustling with noise and excitement. The news that Ji Tianxing had repaired the Holy Cauldron and refined the Divine Elixir Pill in the Burning Sky Palace had spread like wildfire across the entire God's Mountain. Not only did the geniuses from the 6 nations know about this, but countless guards and maidservants were also discussing this matter. Everyone who heard the news could not believe their ears and thought that they had heard wrongly. After confirming the news, everyone was inexplicably shocked and felt that it was unbelievable. Only the top powers of the martial sage realm could control the Holy Cauldron and refine the divine class elixir pill. This was the common knowledge of the martial arts world. However, Ji Tianxing had broken this common knowledge and subverted everyone's understanding of him. Moreover, he had said that he would refine the divine elixir pill in 7 days, which was an unheard of miracle. Almost everyone felt that Ji Tianxing must have gone mad. He actually dared to speak such arrogant words. Everyone was skeptical and doubtful as they waited for the 7-day deadline to arrive. At that time, if Ji Tianxing failed to refine the divine elixir pill, he would be slapping himself in the face and everyone would spare no effort to mock him. The red clouds covered the sky and the sun and lasted for 7 days. Regardless of whether it was day or night, Tidal God Mountain was shrouded in red light and the heavens and earth were filled with thick spiritual fire and spiritual qi. The young geniuses from various nations as well as many guards and maidservants stood guard outside the Burning Sky Palace and refused to leave. Powerful spiritual qi flowed out of the Burning Sky Palace, causing the palace to be surrounded by 5 colors as though it was a fairyland. In these 7 days, many geniuses, guards and maidservants had absorbed a large amount of spiritual qi from the heavens and earth, which was equivalent to 2 months of cultivation. Finally, 7 days passed. The 8th day arrived. At dawn, the heavens and earth were dark and the surroundings of the Burning Sky Palace were dyed dark red by the red clouds. The young geniuses from various nations gathered in the square outside the Burning Sky Palace and waited for the results to be announced. The Great Guardian, Hong Chengtian, and the 6 divine messengers also rushed to the Burning Sky Palace. Many young geniuses were whispering to each other. The 7-day deadline has passed and it's already the 8th day. Why hasn't Ji Tianxing come out yet? Refining the divine elixir pill in 7 days? Do you really believe such arrogant words? I heard that even the Great Guardian and the 3rd Guardian needed 2 months to refine the divine elixir pill. With Ji Tianxing's strength, I'm afraid he might not even be able to refine it in half a year. Yes, the red clouds above the Burning Sky Palace have not dissipated. This means that Ji Tianxing is still refining the elixir. Becoming a saint in 7 days has become a joke. I reckon that Ji Tianxing has already failed in refining the elixir. He's just afraid of losing face, so he's hiding in the Burning Sky Palace and refuses to come out. Let's wait here and see how he's going to clean up after his boasting. While everyone was discussing, the Great Guardian, Hong Chengtian, and the 6 divine messengers were also discussing secretly through voice transmission. The Great Guardian looked at Hong Chengtian and asked, "Elder Hong, the 7-day deadline is almost over. What do you think?" Hong Chengtian stroked his beard and said firmly, "Logic tells me that with Tianxing's strength, it's impossible for him to refine the divine elixir pill in 7 days. But I don't know why, but I feel that this man is extraordinary. He will definitely be a true dragon that soars in the 9 heavens in the future. Maybe he can really create a miracle." The Great Guardian nodded slightly and said with a complicated expression, "Elder Hong, you've served the Divine Master for your whole life. Your loyalty is unparalleled. We all hope for a miracle to heal your injuries. Although it's too unrealistic to expect Tianxing to refine the divine elixir pill in 7 days. but I still have a glimmer of hope in my heart. Maybe he can bring us a surprise." Lin Daoi and the divine messengers were also discussing secretly. However, other than Lin Daoi, who had some confidence in Ji Tianxing, the other 5 divine messengers shook their heads secretly and did not have much hope. Unknowingly, an hour had passed. The sky was about to brighten, and a red light appeared in the eastern horizon. The sun was about to rise. At this moment, flames suddenly surged out of the burning sky palace. They turned into 3 fire dragons that were thousands of feet tall and rushed into the sky. Chapter 1555. In the plaza, the people who had been discussing in low voices all quieted down. Everyone looked up at the sky and stared at the 3 fire dragons soaring into the sky, their faces full of shock. The 3 dazzling sacred fire dragons circled in the sky and let out resounding dragon roars. After a long time, they dissipated. Seeing this scene, the head protector and Hong Chengtian both revealed excited expressions. Hong Chengtian exclaimed with joy, "This is the phenomenon of a sacred pill being born. Sacred fire burning the heavens and 3 dragons illuminating the sun. Ji Tianxing has really refined a sacred pill." The head protector's face was also full of surprise, and he said in disbelief, "I really didn't expect this kid to refine a sacred pill just as the 7-day deadline is up. In the current Shenwu continent, those who can refine sacred pills are all martial saints, and there are less than 50 of them. Ji Tianxing is so young and only has the strength of a primordial spirit, yet he can refine a sacred pill. This kid is really a freak." The 6 divine envoys and the geniuses from various countries all saw the phenomenon of the 3 dragons illuminating the sun, and they were all dumbfounded and in disbelief. The crowd burst into cries of surprise. Soon after, the red clouds that covered the sky also disappeared. The burning heaven palace regained its calm, and it returned to its usual solemn and dignified appearance. Seeing this scene, Hong Chengtian impatiently waved his hand and formed a seal, pressing it on the palace's door. Creak, 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 the palace's door slowly opened. A flood of 5-colored spirit chi poured out of the main hall and washed over the bodies of the people outside. Many of the geniuses felt refreshed, and all the pores on their bodies opened up. Even their primordial spirits had been cleansed and purified. After the 5-colored spirit chi dispersed, there was still a fragrant and refreshing fragrance of a sacred pill that spread out from the burning heaven palace's door and pervaded the plaza. Everyone who smelled the sacred pill's fragrance felt refreshed, and their consciousness became purer and clearer. Their aptitude and comprehension had also improved. All sorts of inconceivable improvements and changes shocked everyone, and they were all very excited. "It's the fragrance of a sacred pill. Ji Tianxing has really refined a sacred pill. The sun has just risen, and the 7-day deadline is up. He has really created a miracle. Heavens! Was this the spiritual energy of a holy elixir? Too miraculous! My primordial spirit has been cleansed and purified, and I am about to break through the bottleneck." Before this, I still had many questions about the martial Tao that I couldn't solve. But now, I feel as if I've been enlightened. This is unbelievable. Many young geniuses let out excited exclamations. Previously, they had denied and questioned the fact that Ji Tianxing had refined the sacred pill in 7 days. Now, there was only shock and admiration left in their hearts. At this moment, the head protector and Hong Chengtian had already stepped into the main hall of the burning sky palace. The spacious main hall was filled with dense multicolored spirit chi, making it appear bright and dazzling. Before the 2 of them saw Ji Tianxing's figure, their gazes fell on the top of the burning sky cauldron. He saw a fist-sized ball of dark red flame floating above the mouth of the cauldron, releasing a dazzling brilliance and energy fluctuations that could move heaven and earth. The intoxicating holy elixir spirit chi was released from that ball of fire. The 2 of them stared at the ball of sparkling and translucent fire, unable to move their eyes away. Their faces were filled with amazement. "Oh my God! It is indeed a sacred elixir, and its quality is very high. The sacred elixir is sparkling and translucent, with cloud patterns and fire flowing on its surface, condensing the fire essence of heaven and earth to the extreme. What a brilliant alchemy method! It seems that only the 10 alchemy sages titled can refine such a high-quality sacred elixir. If we didn't see it with our own eyes, how could we believe that this was refined by Ji Tianqing? The two of them were shocked beyond words, and their hearts were in turmoil. Ji Tianqing is only a primordial spirit now, but he can refine such an outstanding sacred elixir. If he reaches the crossing calamity realm or the martial sage realm, won't he be able to refine the sacred elixir? Just as the two of them were in a daze, Ji Tianqing, who was sitting cross-legged under the burning sky cauldron, slowly stopped. He reached out and grabbed the ball of sparkling and translucent fire floating in the air in his palm. The dazzling fire quickly converged and turned into a walnut-sized dark red elixir, quietly floating in his palm. He turned and walked in front of Hong Qingtian. He smiled and said, "Elder Hong, fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. This celestial crystal jade elixir is finally refined." With that, he reached out and handed the elixir to Hong Qingtian. He reminded him, "Elder Hong, after consuming this elixir, meditate for 27 days before you can refine it. In the future, when you have gathered the earth core fire crystal and the outer sky Shenbing, I will tell you the method of setting up the array to heal your injuries." Hong Qingtian glanced at the celestial crystal jade elixir, but he was not in a hurry to take it. He looked at Ji Tianqing with a burning gaze, and his expression was filled with emotions. He said in a solemn tone, "Tianqing, I never thought that I would have the chance to heal my injuries in this life. Thank you. You worked so hard for this old man and created such a miracle, giving this old man hope. I will remember this favor. When I recover from my injuries, I will repay you tenfold." The great guardian watched from the side and was filled with emotions. When he heard the words tenfold repayment, his body immediately trembled, and he thought to himself, tenfold repayment. Is Elder Hong going to give him 10 divine elixir pills? Or is he going to do his best to nurture him? Ji Tianqing did not answer. He smiled and said, "The most important thing now is for you to consume this elixir to heal your injuries. After you recover from your injuries, we will talk about other things. I have been refining the elixir for 7 days, and my magic power is almost exhausted. My mind is also very tired, so I will return to the Heaven Saint Palace to rest. Great Guardian, Elder Hong, I will leave the rest to you." After he finished speaking, he cupped his hands towards the Great Guardian and Hong Qingtian before taking his leave. The two of them then realized that his face was a little pale, and his primordial spirit and magic power were very weak. He had indeed exhausted a lot of his energy. Hong Qingtian felt even more guilty. He smiled bitterly and said, "I was too excited and forgot to care about his situation. It's really Sai." The Great Guardian advised, "Elder Hong, you don't have to blame yourself. I am also dizzy. Now, I still feel like I am in a dream. Don't worry, Tianqing has only exhausted his magic power. He will be fine after a few days of rest in the Heaven Saint Palace." Hong Qingtian then solemnly accepted the celestial jade elixir and joined hands with the Great Guardian to cast a spell to close the burning sky cauldron and the entire array. When the two of them walked out of the hall, Ji Tianqing had already left. There were more than 100 people in the square, and there was a hubbub of voices as they discussed excitedly. "I saw the divine elixir pill that Ji Tianqing refined. It was sparkling like fire and had a halo flowing around it. Its aura was very powerful. The value of a divine elixir pill is enough to exchange for an ancient city. I actually witnessed the birth of a divine elixir pill. I am so lucky. From now on, besides the Great Guardian, there will be another person who can refine divine elixir pills on Mount God Bestowment, Ji Tianqing." Chapter 1556. In the evening in Thousand Snow Palace. In a quiet and elegant courtyard, Jiang Ningxue was sitting on a stone bench under an ancient pine. She was staring at a teacup in front of her in a daze. Over the past month, she had been feeling uneasy. All sorts of images had surfaced in her mind. For some reason, she had repeatedly compared Lu Li and Ji Tianqing in her heart. Eventually, Lu Li's figure became fainter while Ji Tianxing's figure became clearer. She held the white jade teacup with both hands and remained silent for a long time. Then she muttered to herself, "The Son of God, with his strength at the essence soul realm, actually repaired the holy cauldron and refined the divine elixir in 7 days. Why didn't I see that he had such talent and potential to create such miracles?" Now, 5 days have passed and the entire Mount God ceiling is discussing his deeds. Everyone is praising him. No, I can't be reserved and wait any longer. 5 days have passed. He should be done recuperating, right? Although Ji Tianxing had become an influential figure in Mount God's ceiling, the most dazzling genius, there was still a trace of confidence in him. However, there was still a trace of confidence in her heart that Ji Tianxing still had a good impression of her. After all, she was the only woman among the top 5 geniuses. She believed that her background, looks, talent, and learning were all worthy of Ji Tianxing. A moment later, she made up her mind and personally wrote an invitation. She handed the invitation to a maidservant and got her to deliver it to the East Court of Heaven's Saint Palace. When night fell, Ji Tianxing ended his cultivation and walked out of the secret chamber. After 5 days of recuperation, his strength had completely recovered. Furthermore, when he refined the divine elixir, he had absorbed massive amounts of spiritual energy from heaven and earth and benefited immensely. Now, his strength had improved and he had reached the peak of the 5th level of the essence soul realm. He had touched the bottleneck. As long as he broke through the bottleneck, he would reach the 6th level of the essence soul realm. Just as he walked out of the secret chamber, a golden armored guard came up to him and bowed respectfully. Then he handed over an invitation. Reporting to young Master Ji, a maidservant from the Thousand Snow Palace sent you an invitation card just now. Ji Tianxing reached out to take the pale golden invitation and glanced at the signature on the cover. There was only one word, Jiang. He immediately understood that Jiang Ningxue had sent someone to deliver the invitation. Got it? You may leave. He waved his hand to dismiss the guards and returned to his bedroom with the invitation. When he opened the invitation, there were 2 lines of elegant and beautiful words written on it. Young Master Ji, please make your way to the Thousand Snow Palace's side courtyard. Ningxue has something to discuss with young master. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and his lips curled into a playful smile. She actually took the initiative to invite me to her residence? I'm afraid his motives aren't pure. As he spoke, a ball of crimson fire appeared in his palm and burned the invitation to ashes. He got up and left the room, walking towards the Thousand Snow Palace at a leisurely pace. The night was dark, the sky was dotted with stars, and the moonlight was like water. The Thousand Snow Palace was brightly lit. Other than the guards and maids on duty, no one was moving around. When he entered Jiang Ningxue's side courtyard, there was already a maid waiting at the door, waiting for his arrival. Young Master Ji, young Miss Jiang has been waiting for you for a long time. Please follow this servant. The maid led him through the courtyard and corridors, entering a bedroom in the depths of the courtyard. When they reached the door, the maid stopped and bowed. Young Master Ji, young Miss Jiang is waiting for you inside. Please come in. Ji Tianxing glanced at the dimly lit bedroom and couldn't help but frown. He thought to himself, she invited me here in the middle of the night, not in the drawing room, but in the boudoir. He acted as if nothing had happened, but in fact, he was vigilant. After stepping into the bedroom, he looked around but didn't see Jiang Ningxue. He only smelled a faint fragrance that filled the room. The wide jade bed was covered with a gauze curtain and covered with a light red brocade quilt, but there was no one in sight. On the round wooden table beside the bed, there were 2 exquisite white jade bottles, which seemed to contain some kind of elixir. Ji Tianxing was looking at the 2 jade bottles when he heard a clear and melodious voice. Young Master Ji, after you finished refining the elixir that day, Ningxue saw that you didn't look well and that you had used up a lot of your magic power. The 2 bottles of elixir on the table are tribulation-grade elixirs that Ningxue specially prepared for you. They can help you recover your magic power and nourish your soul. Please accept them. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and looked to the left side of the bedroom. He saw a white jade screen on the left side of the wall, engraved with patterns of flowers and bamboos. Jiang Ningxue's voice came from behind the screen. Ji Tianxing knew that the screen must be connected to a side room, which was usually a secret room. Thus he strode over. I'm flattered that young Miss Jiang is so concerned about me. However, I've already recovered after 5 days of rest. You should keep these 2 bottles of elixir for yourself. As he spoke, he walked around the screen and was about to enter this secret room. But when he saw the scene in front of him, his body stiffened and he stopped in his tracks. There was indeed a side room behind the screen, but it wasn't a secret room for cultivation. Instead, it was a hot spring pool. The 3-meter square pool was filled with Earth Spirit spring water, and steam was rising from it. Pink and red petals floated on the surface of the water, emitting a seductive fragrance. Jiang Ningxue was sitting in the hot spring pool, bathing elegantly. She raised her flawless arm and stirred up the warm spring water, pouring it onto her tender shoulder. Although she was sitting in the pool, her body was obscured by the steam, faintly discernible. But Ji Tianxing could still see clearly that she was only wearing a thin, transparent robe, which was already soaked by the water. The infinitely beautiful scenery rippled gently under the water, making one unable to look away and only want to see what was going on. Her beautiful cheeks were flushed, and her wet hair was draped over her shoulders. Her watery eyes contained a seductive charm. Young Master Ji, I've been worried about you for many days. I couldn't bear it any longer, so I shamelessly invited you to meet me. You actually refused my kind intentions. Aren't you afraid that I'll be sad? She bit her lips and looked at Ji Tianxing, her voice filled with grievance. Her pitiful appearance made it hard for one to refuse. Ji Tianxing frowned slightly and turned his back to her. He said calmly, Young Miss Jiang, as the saying goes, one should not accept a reward without any effort. How can I accept your gift? Moreover, Heaven's Saint Palace has an endless supply of cultivation resources. I can't use them all, so why should I let you spend money? Seeing his back to her, a trace of disappointment flashed through Jiang Ningxue's eyes. She thought to herself, I've already put down my face and invited him here, but he doesn't appreciate it. Seeing me bathe, he's not tempted at all. Am I so unbearable that I'm not attractive to him at all? Impossible. There's no man in this world who isn't lustful. It's just that some are more obvious, while others hide deeper. Chapter 1557. It was such an obvious hint. Anyone who wasn't an idiot would know what it meant. This was already the limit of Jiang Ningxue's heart. She was already trying her best to hold back her embarrassment by saying that. After saying that, she lowered her head, not daring to look at Ji Tianxing. Her cheeks were burning red. She didn't say anything. She just waited quietly. She believed that as long as Ji Tianxing still had some feelings for her, he wouldn't reject her. However, Ji Tianxing didn't turn around. With his back still facing her, he said calmly, Miss Jiang, you must be joking. With your strength, how could you feel unwell? If Miss Jiang doesn't have anything else, I'll take my leave. After saying that, he walked away. Jiang Ningxue's body stiffened. She raised her head to look at him. Her eyes were filled with astonishment and disappointment. She didn't expect that Ji Tianxing wouldn't be moved at all after she threw herself at him like that. Seeing that Ji Tianxing was about to leave, she stood up in a hurry. Her beautiful body was exposed. A thin layer of wet sand couldn't cover it at all. However, she couldn't care less about her embarrassment. She said unwillingly, Young Master Ji, I've seriously considered your conditions for a long time. I've decided to agree to them. Ji Tianxing walked away without looking back. He said calmly, that condition was just a joke. Miss Jiang, you don't have to take it seriously. Also, with your family background, that sword of mine isn't much of a treasure to you. Why do you have to make such a sacrifice? When he finished speaking, he had already stepped through the door and left the bedroom. Jiang Ningxue stood in the hot spring. Her body was stiff. She stared at the screen as if she had lost her soul. After a long time, when Ji Tianxing was long gone, she finally regained her senses. Damn it! What he said was just a joke. He lied to me. Despicable guy, who wants your treasured sword? What I want is... Her plan to seduce him with her beauty failed. Even when she threw herself into his arms and shamelessly exposed herself to him in the hot spring, she still couldn't move Ji Tianxing. The incomparable humiliation caused her face to flush red, and her body started to tremble. Ji Tianxing, you despicable bastard, I won't let this go. Jiang Ningxue cursed angrily as tears welled up in her eyes. Ji Tianxing left the Thousand Snow Palace as though nothing had happened, heading towards the Heaven Saint Palace at a leisurely pace. Under the moonlight, he had a calm expression, but his eyes were filled with longing. Yao Yao, ever since you entered my heart, it's hard for my heart to accept anyone else, let alone someone like Jiang Ningxue. I hope you are doing well in the Luo Shui Divine Kingdom. Perhaps in a few months, we will be able to meet again. He looked up at the stars in the night sky and a faint smile appeared on his face. 100 breaths later, he returned to the eastern courtyard of the Heaven Saint Palace. However, when he walked to his room, he found that the 2 golden-armored guards guarding the door had fallen asleep on the ground. Seeing this scene, he frowned. The golden-armored guards of Godseal Mountain are all elites who abide by the law. How can they fall asleep while on duty? He vaguely felt that something was wrong, so he quickly released his divine sense to envelop the room. In the next moment, his divine sense detected that there was a black shadow in the room, rummaging through boxes and cabinets, looking for something. The study and secret room next to the bedroom had already been rummaged through. The windows and cabinets were open and not closed. There were also 2 young maids who had fainted at the door of the study, sleeping peacefully. Damn it! Ji Tianxing cursed in his heart. His face turned cold and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. His figure flashed and rushed into the room, heading straight for the black shadow. Who dares to barge into the Heaven Saint Palace? You are courting death. He angrily roared, and a golden light shot out from his right palm at the black shadow. The black shadow was a man dressed in black. He wore a black mask on his face, making it impossible to see his features. He also sensed that Ji Tianxing had returned, so he hurriedly sent out a thick blue light at Ji Tianxing. Boom! The 2 rays of light collided in midair, causing a loud, dull sound to ring out. Instantly, the violent and unparalleled impact shattered the entire room into smithereens. The bed, wardrobe, desk, and other things in the room were instantly reduced to dust. Luckily, the courtyard had a powerful array, or else the entire courtyard would have been reduced to rubble. The 2 exchanged palms, but neither of them had the upper hand. The black-clothed man did not dare to linger. He decisively used the earth escape technique and burrowed into the ground. His figure disappeared. In the blink of an eye, he had teleported 10,000 feet away, escaping out of the eastern courtyard. Ji Tianxing also burrowed into the ground, traveling at extreme speed, vowing to catch up to the black-clothed man. The so-called underground was actually the belly of the God-Sealing Mountain. It was made of incomparably hard rock, and there were many underground palaces and secret tunnels. Those underground palaces and secret tunnels were all protected by powerful arrays. Even with the black-clothed man and Ji Tianxing's strength, they were unable to pass through those defensive arrays. They had to go around the intersecting tunnels and underground palaces. As a result, Ji Tianxing's speed was much slower. But the black-clothed man did not slow down. He was clearly very familiar with the underground palaces and secret tunnels and had already made preparations. The 2 chased underground for 20 breaths of time before the black-clothed man shook off Ji Tianxing and disappeared without a trace. Helpless, Ji Tianxing could only stop the chase and return to the Heaven Saint Palace gloomily. After returning to the eastern courtyard, he questioned the golden-armored guard guarding the gate and the patrolling guards in the courtyard. In the end, none of the guards knew that the black-clothed man had sneaked in. He then found the unconscious guards and maidservants. After using his cultivation technique to check, he realized that they had been drugged with some kind of ecstasy. He ordered the guards to find craftsmen to quickly repair the destroyed rooms. He then entered the secret chamber alone to think about this matter calmly. How can there be such a coincidence? Could it be a plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain? What is the relationship between that black-clothed man and Jiang Ningxue? What was he looking for when he snuck into my house and turned everything upside down? When night fell, Jiang Ningxue sent someone to deliver an invitation card to invite him to the Thousand Snow Palace's side courtyard. When he arrived at the side courtyard, Jiang Ningxue was actually bathing in the hot spring and even wanted to use her beauty to seduce him. He rejected Jiang Ningxue and left the Thousand Snow Palace in advance. When he returned to his residence, he found the black-clothed man rummaging through something. This series of events made him suspect that the black-clothed man was most likely Jiang Ningxue's accomplice. As for what the black-clothed man was looking for, there was no need for him to guess. It must be the sword of burial of heaven. That black-clothed man might be Jiang Ningxue's accomplice, which means he could be working for Lu Li. No wonder he is so familiar with the terrain of the Mountain of Invasions. Lu Li had left the Mountain of Invasions, but he still had a backup plan. Chapter 1558. The appearance of the black-clothed person made Ji Tianxing all the more vigilant. He understood that not only did people below Divine Sealing Mountain want to snatch the burial of Heaven's sword. Even on Divine Sealing Mountain, there were also people with ulterior motives lurking, finding opportunities to snatch his divine sword. The following few days, he had been in closed seclusion cultivation in a hidden chamber the entire time. After the black-clothed person's whereabouts were exposed and alerted the enemy, he never appeared again. 5 days passed in a flash. This morning, the 6 divine envoys respectively rushed to the palaces where the 6 nations' geniuses resided and gathered everyone in the plaza outside the hall. Over 100 geniuses gathered in the plaza, waiting quietly. Before long, Head Protector came to the plaza and announced a piece of news in public. Everyone has already entered Divine Sealing Mountain for 3 months. In another 3 months' time, it will be the day of the Divine Apprentice test. In order to test everyone's cultivation results, and also to help everyone rapidly increase their strength, the vast Heaven Pagoda will open the first level from today onwards for a period of 2 months. Within the time limit, everyone can head to the first level of the vast Heaven Pagoda on your own and enter the 3,000 worlds to train and explore. After announcing the news, Head Protector turned around and left. The many young geniuses were immediately roused, all discussing agitatedly. Great! The vast Heaven Pagoda is finally open. I've waited for this day for a long time. Before coming to Divine Sealing Mountain, I already heard that the vast Heaven Pagoda's 3,000 worlds are the world's pinnacle profound mystic realms, an exceptionally excellent holy land for training. Now we can finally enter. 3,000 worlds are 3,000 different mystic realms, both real and illusory. Among them, there are both tremendous dangers and bumps, but also contain massive amounts of natural treasures and rare treasures. I heard long ago that many people all obtained extraordinary treasures or mystic arts after entering the mystic realms to train. Regardless of whether I can pass the Divine Apprentice test or not half a year later, as long as I can enter the 3,000 worlds to train once, it will be considered a worthwhile trip. Regardless of whether one can become a Divine Apprentice or not, being able to train in the 3,000 worlds will have tremendous benefits. Many young geniuses were discussing excitedly. Their expressions and eyes were filled with anticipation. Before long, there were people leaving the plaza, rushing towards the vast Heaven Pagoda impatiently. Hence, the vast majority of the people followed and rushed over. Arriving at the bottom of the vast Heaven Pagoda, everyone saw that the door that was tightly shut all year round already opened. Everyone surged into the vast Heaven Pagoda one after another, standing in the spacious main hall as they sized up the surroundings. The walls around the circular hall were covered with countless black stone doors, each of which was tightly shut. Mysterious formations and diagrams were engraved on the stone door. There were also different names written on the lintel, such as Jade Pure Sea, Lava World, Desolate Desert, and so on. Without a doubt, this was the 3,000 worlds. Behind each stone door, there was a special secret realm. Some of the more attentive young geniuses discovered that some of the names on the black stone doors were white, some were purple, and some were blue. Strange, the names of these stone doors are actually divided into 3 colors? Hundreds of stone doors are actually separated by 3 colors. Could it be that different secret realms also have different levels? Just as everyone was discussing animatedly, a low and dignified voice resounded in the vast hall. You guessed correctly. The secret realms of the 3,000 worlds are divided into 3 levels according to the degree of danger. Everyone immediately quieted down and looked up at the second floor, only to see a white-haired old man dressed in golden robes was currently walking down the stairs. The old man had white hair and a ruddy complexion. His nose bridge was high, and his eyes were brimming with vigor. His entire body emitted the dignity of an expert. Some of the young geniuses who recognized him immediately bowed respectfully and greeted, "Greetings, Fourth Protector." Many geniuses immediately came to a realization and hurriedly followed suit and bowed. The Fourth Protector guarded the first and second levels of the vast Heaven Pagoda all year round, guarding the 3,000 worlds' mystic realms exclusively. He walked to the middle of the main hall and introduced to everyone. The first level of the vast Heaven Pagoda has a total of 108 mystic realm doors, only suitable for Essence Soul Realm martial artists to train here. The 3 colors represent the danger level. White is the lowest, suitable for martial artists below the 4th level of the Essence Soul Realm. The blue Mystic Realm's danger level is moderate, suitable for 5th to 7th level Essence Soul Realm martial artists. And the purple Mystic Realm is the most dangerous, recommended for martial artists above the 7th level Essence Soul Realm to train. Of course, the more dangerous the Mystic Realm, the more opportunities and natural treasures contained, and the greater the rewards obtained. After hearing the Fourth Protector's introduction, many of the geniuses were very tempted. Most of them looked at the blue stone door, while the top few geniuses stared at the purple stone door. Seeing this, the Fourth Protector frowned slightly and exhorted solemnly, "Everyone, do not make a rash choice. I have something to remind everyone. The various mystic realms are very realistic, and they hide all kinds of dangers and dangers. Although you will not die while training in the mystic realms, you might be injured or crippled. If you rashly choose the mystic realm of the highest difficulty, not only will you not obtain any opportunities and treasures, but you will also be severely injured. It will definitely affect your God-disciple test 3 months later. I wish everyone a bountiful harvest, but I also hope that everyone will consider carefully and weigh the pros and cons." After saying what needed to be said, the Fourth Protector turned and left. The young geniuses of the 6 nations stared at the mystic realm doors around them, pondering and discussing with solemn expressions. After a while, someone made the first decision and entered the blue mystic realm door. The other geniuses followed suit and entered the mystic realm one by one, each choosing a blue stone door. Most of the geniuses chose the mystic realm of medium difficulty and stayed away from the purple stone door, which was the most dangerous. However, a young man in a gray sackcloth walked out from the crowd. He carried a black saber on his back and stepped into a purple stone door. When everyone saw the figure of the young man in sackcloth, they were shocked and exclaimed, "It's Qin Xianxia. He actually entered the most dangerous purple mystic realm. He is indeed the top genius of the Blue Dragon Empire and the most powerful genius among the candidates this year. He is too confident." The stone door he entered is the primordial battlefield. It is not difficult to guess from the name that there must be great danger inside. The Fourth Protector said just now that the more dangerous the mystic realm, the more treasures there are and the greater the rewards. If Qin Xianxia successfully enters the primordial battlefield, he will definitely reap great rewards. At this moment, another figure walked out from the crowd and entered a purple stone door. Everyone turned their heads and saw that it was a handsome young man in a black robe. It was Song Zhanyu from the White Knight Empire. Immediately, the crowd burst into a burst of exclamations and discussions. Song Zhanyu actually entered the most dangerous purple mystic realm? It seems that he thinks that he is not weaker than Qin Xianxia. If Qin Xianxia and Song Zhanyu successfully enter the mystic realm, they will definitely reap great rewards. It is very likely that they will break through to the 7th level of the Essence Soul Realm. Chapter 1559. The purple word secret realm that Song Zhanyu had chosen was called the Thunderfire Canyon. No one could imagine what dangers and rewards there would be in the secret realm. However, everyone knew that ordinary people would be severely injured if they entered the secret realm. All the geniuses admired Song Zhanyu and Qin Xianxia's choice. Everyone was envious of their confidence and courage, but no one dared to imitate them. At this moment, Jiang Ningxue, who was standing in the crowd, also walked toward a purple stone door after pondering for a while with a serious expression. I will wash away the humiliation I suffered that night with my own hands. In the God-disciple examination in 3 months, I will let him know that I, Jiang Ningxue, am not an ordinary person. I will defeat him with my own hands. As this thought flashed through her mind, her cold eyes were filled with determination. When she stepped into the 5 ultimate cloud peaks secret realm, all the geniuses were astonished. Gosh! Jiang Ningxue also entered the purple word secret realm? Qin Xianxia and Song Zhanyu dared to enter the most dangerous secret realm because they were confident in their abilities. However, they also wanted to compete with each other secretly. Why did Jiang Ningxue also enter the purple word secret realm? Could it be that she wants to compete with those two? Jiang Ningxue looks gloomy. She is not as gentle and quiet as she used to be. Did something happen to her? The top 3 geniuses have all entered the purple word secret realm. I wonder who the 4th and 5th geniuses will choose? By the way, why didn't I see Ji Tianxing? Isn't he the 4th genius? When someone mentioned Ji Tianxing, the geniuses changed the topic and started to discuss. If Ji Tianxing is here, with his arrogant personality, he will also enter the purple word secret realm. He is now living in the Heaven Saint Palace and enjoying the best resources. I don't think he will take the risk, right? That's right. It is unknown whether he can obtain treasures in the secret realm, but he will definitely encounter great danger. Ji Tianxing is enjoying life in the Heaven Saint Palace. I don't think he wants to suffer in the secret realm. Haha, if he misses the chance to train in the secret realm, he will be a fool. Who doesn't know the mysteries of the 3,000 worlds secret realm? Our biggest wish in coming to God Conferment Mountain is to enter the 3,000 secret realms and gain experience. If Ji Tianxing gives up, then he will be left far behind by the top 3. 2 months later, when everyone's training is over, he probably won't even make it into the top 10, right? When everyone talked about how Ji Tianxing was enjoying life in the Heaven Saint Palace, their voices were filled with jealousy. Therefore, most people were gloating over his misfortune. When night fell, Ji Tianxing was cultivating in the secret chamber. Suddenly, a guard knocked on the door and respectfully reporting to young Master Ji, the 3rd protector has come to visit. They have an important matter to discuss with you. When Ji Tianxing heard the sound, he slowly ended his cultivation and walked out of the secret room. When he arrived at the study, he saw Hong Chengtian sitting in the study waiting for him. Therefore, he greeted Hong Chengtian and asked, Elder Hong, why didn't you take the celestial jade divine pill to heal your injuries? Hong Chengtian waved his hand and said solemnly, I'm not in a hurry to heal my injuries. I have an important matter to inform you. After this matter is settled, I'll take the pill and go into seclusion to heal my injuries. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked, What's the important matter? It's about the 3,000 secret realms. Hong Chengtian looked at him with a burning gaze. Today, the 3-month deadline is up. The Great Protector announced the opening of the 3,000 secret realms. Are you ready? Ji Tianxing thought for a while and understood what was going on. You're talking about the secret realms? That's right. Hong Chengtian nodded and said, The secret realms on the 1st level of the Clear Sky Pagoda are all open. All God's disciple candidates can enter by themselves. Different secret realms had different levels of danger, and the treasures and opportunities one could obtain were also different. No matter what, every God's disciple candidate can't miss this opportunity. Ji Tianxing frowned slightly. After thinking for a while, he shook his head and said, I'm not interested in the secret realms, so I won't join in the fun. He knew that someone on Mount God Bestowment was secretly plotting to steal the sword of the burial of heaven. If he entered the secret realms to train, It would give others an opportunity to take advantage of him and increase the danger. At that time, there might be some trouble. However, when Hong Chengtian saw his reaction, he frowned and looked worried. He stared at Ji Tianxing and said earnestly, "Tianxing, you might not know about the mystery of the 3,000 secret realms. It's the holy land that all God's disciple candidates dream of. Most people who train in the secret realms will increase their strength and obtain great benefits and treasures. A peerless genius like you will definitely obtain great opportunities and gains in the secret realms." Ji Tianxing was still unmoved. Hong Chengtian thought for a while and said, "I heard that Qin Zhangqiong, Song Zhanyu, and Jiang Ningxue have all entered the most dangerous purple secret realms. Once they successfully pass the secret realms, their strength will increase greatly in 2 months. At that time, it will be difficult for you to enter the top 3. Ji Tianxing's lips curled up into a faint smile as he said confidently, "I've been cultivating in the Heaven Saint Palace, and my strength has also increased rapidly. Regardless of whether it's now or 2 months later, it will be easy for me to enter the top 3. Seeing that he was still stubborn, Hong Chengtian couldn't help but ask, "Tianxing, Heaven Saint Palace is your residence. If you want to train in the secret realms, you will have plenty of time in the future. However, you only have one chance to train in the secret realms this time. The next time you open the secret realms will be at least 1 year later. I don't understand. Didn't you come to Mount God Bestowment to increase your strength and become a God's disciple? With such a great opportunity in front of you, why do you want to give it up?" Ji Tianxing knew that Hong Chengtian was sincerely concerned about him. That was why he tried so hard to persuade him. He said sincerely, "Elder Hong, thank you for your concern. However, I really didn't come to Mount God Bestowment to become a God's disciple." "Then why did you come?" Hong Chengtian was stunned for a while and frowned in confusion. Ji Tianxing's eyes were dim as he said in a heavy tone, "To find a very important person, my wife." Hong Chengtian asked closely, "Your wife? Is she in Mount God Bestowment?" "She isn't." Ji Tianxing shook his head and said calmly, "I only know her approximate location. However, I don't know where she is or how she is doing." Hong Chengtian frowned and thought for a while. Suddenly, he thought of something and his eyes lit up. "Oh yes, I thought of something that might be able to help you." Ji Tianxing stared at him with an expectant gaze. "Please enlighten me, Elder Hong." Hong Chengtian smiled and said, "Since you have helped me so much, I will point you in the right direction. Perhaps it might be able to help you. 1,000,000 miles north of Mount God Bestowment, there is a forbidden area called God's Tear Lake. Chapter 1560. God Tear Lake? Lord of God Tear Island? Ji Tianxing looked at Hong Chengtian in confusion. "Elder Hong, why can I achieve my wish by going to the God Tear Lake?" Hong Chengtian stroked his beard and explained with a smile. According to legend, there was a goddess in the ancient times who stood in the starry sky for 1,000 years, waiting for her husband to return from the depths of the starry sky. However, what returned in the end was her husband's legacy. Heartbroken, the goddess' tears scattered across the starry sky and fell onto this land. That drop of goddess tears eventually turned into a lake, which was called the God Tear Lake. Hearing this, Ji Tianxing was slightly moved. He said with anticipation, "So the God Tear Lake has such a legendary origin and story. I wonder what effect it has?" Hong Chengtian nodded slightly and said, "It is said that lovers will be blessed to grow old together in the God Tear Lake. As for lovers, if they have an obsession in their heart, they will be able to see their loved ones in the God Tear Lake. It doesn't matter if the loved ones are far away or have already passed away." "See?" Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked, "What do you mean by see? If it's just an illusion, what's the use of seeing it?" Hong Chengtian shook his head and said with a smile, "How can the famous God Tear Lake only have this effect? Of course, you won't be able to see your wife in person. You can only see an illusion. However, that illusion will let you know where she is and what her situation is like." Ji Tianxing finally understood. His eyes were filled with anticipation. "That's great. What I'm most worried about now is her situation and safety. If I can see her safe and sound, even if it's just a glance, I'll be able to feel at ease. That's right, what's the matter with the Lord of God Tier Island? Hong Chunan thought for a while and said solemnly, the Lord of God Tier Island is a strange person. For 2,000 years, she has been living in seclusion in the God Tier Lake. She has designated it as a forbidden area and no one is allowed to approach it. I've seen her twice in the past and can tell that she's a martial saint expert. However, she's not a fierce and bloodthirsty person. It's just that her personality is too cold and indifferent. She's like an immortal in the heavens, without emotions and desires. After you reach the God Tier Lake, you have to find a way to meet the God Tier Island Master. Only then can you borrow the power of the God Tier Lake to fulfill your wish. As for whether you can see her or not, that will depend on your luck. After Ji Tianxing heard this, he seriously considered for a long time before he nodded and said, "Many thanks for Elder Hong's guidance. Since there is such a mystical place like the God's Tier Lake, I will definitely take a look and fulfill my wish." Hong Qingtian rummaged through his spatial ring for a moment, then found a scroll and handed it to him. "Tianxing, this is a map of the vast divine kingdom. God Bestowment Mountain and God Tier Lake are marked on it." Ji Tianxing accepted the map and thanked him again. Hong Qingtian reminded him again, by right, after a God's disciple candidate enters Mount God Bestowment, he can't leave without permission. However, this old man will help you fulfill your wish. After you leave God's Bane Mountain, you must be careful on the way. Don't make any mistakes. I understand. Many thanks for Elder Hong's concern. Ji Tianxing nodded and said, "I will rest for the night and set off early tomorrow morning." The two of them chatted for a while more before Hong Qingtian took his leave. Ji Tianxing returned to the secret chamber and continued to meditate. The night passed quickly. The next morning, when the sun rose, Ji Tianxing left the Heaven Saint Palace and quietly left Mount God Bestowment. He had the God's Sun token with him. Even if he left Mount God Bestowment, the golden armored guards wouldn't stop him. He knew that there were a few groups of people who wanted the Sword of Burial of Heaven and might be waiting for him outside Mount God Bestowment. However, he was most worried about Yun Yao's situation. Even if he had to take the risk, he had to make a trip to the God's Tier Lake to check on Yun Yao's situation and fulfill his wish. After leaving Mount God Bestowment, he used the Spirit Concealment Step and flew tens of thousands of miles away. When he was far away from Mount God Bestowment, he summoned the Black Dragon. A black light flashed, and an incomparably majestic dragon roar sounded. The black dragon flew out from the sword world and revealed its 5-kilometer-long divine dragon body. It carried Ji Tianxing and flew toward the north. The black dragon faced the rising sun and cut through the sea of clouds at lightning speed. Ji Tianxing sat on the black dragon's back and closed his eyes to meditate. He spread out his divine sense and covered a radius of 25 miles to monitor the surroundings. If there was anything unusual, he would be able to detect it immediately. Luckily, the black dragon flew for tens of thousands of miles without detecting anything unusual. It seems like those people who are hiding under Mount God Bestowment and waiting for the opportunity to snatch my Sword of Burial of Heaven didn't realize that I had left Mount God Bestowment. Or maybe those people have been waiting for too long and have already left since I didn't come down the mountain. This thought flashed through Ji Tianxing's mind, and he felt a little relieved. For the next 2 days, the black dragon flew high in the sky, crossing thousands of mountains and rivers and many cities. Ji Tianxing knew that Mount God Bestowment was located in the middle of the 6 great empires, and the Azure Dragon Empire's territory was to the north. Within the Azure Dragon Empire, the scenery was magnificent, the mountains were majestic, and the rivers flowed rapidly. Ever since he had arrived at Shenwu Continent, this was the first time he had gone out alone, and he took the opportunity to enjoy the scenery. Although many of the mountains and rivers were desolate places where no one could be seen for thousands of miles, Shenwu Continent was still a continent. However, he had to admit that the Shenwu Continent was indeed a holy land for martial artists. Even the most ordinary mountain range had many spirit flowers, medicinal herbs, and spirit fruits. The world's spiritual energy was very dense. Many rare species of demonic beasts with noble bloodlines grew wild in the mountains and rivers. They had the ability to summon the wind and rain, and they could even move mountains and level the ground. When the black dragon flew over a towering mountain range, an 8-winged skyhawk that was about to condense a primordial spirit took advantage of the situation to launch an ambush. The 8-winged skyhawk had rich battle experience, and it actually released a spell that could destroy the world and directly attacked the black dragon's vital points. Fortunately, Xianxia had sensed that something was wrong in advance, and he had promptly summoned his golden primordial spirit sword and slashed out with a sword light that could split the heavens and earth. The 8-winged skyhawk only had the strength of a half-step primordial spirit, and it was immediately cut in two by the sword light, its body and soul destroyed. The black dragon flew over the mountain range without any mishaps, and it became even more cautious. 3 days later, the black dragon had flown over 800,000 kilometers, and it was not far from the goddess Tyr Lake. At this time, it was flying above a primitive forest in a sea of clouds. Xianxia was resting on the dragon's back with his eyes closed when he suddenly sensed a dangerous aura rapidly approaching. He suddenly opened his eyes and looked towards the sky to his left. He saw a black cloud that covered the sky and the sun, and it was quickly approaching him like a stream of light. The black cloud was extremely fast, and in a few breaths, it blocked the black dragon's path. At this time, Xianxia could clearly see that it was not a black cloud, but a flock of black birds. These birds looked like crows, but their bodies were 2 meters long, and there were tens of thousands of them. The flock of black crows surrounded a giant purple bird that was 100 meters long. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.